Jian Wushuang talked with Xianxia for quite a long while. They talked about the changes in the ancient sect over the 2,000 years and other trivial things. Their meeting lasted almost half a day, but during this period of time, Jian Wushuang had never inquired about Xianxi's real identity or background, nor had Xianxia unveiled them to him. Jian Wushuang did not want others to know that he was still alive. Therefore, he only visited his master and then left the ancient sect. Jian Wushuang, your master has a big secret, Gu King said in a serious tone. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded. In fact, he had discovered that a long time ago. If my assumption is correct, your master does not belong to this green fire world. He must be from the eternal chaotic world and is probably a big shot, a top-notch existence in the eternal chaotic world. Gu King continued. Are you sure? Jian Wushuang asked, furrowing his brows. Are you sure that my master Xianxia is a top-notch expert in the eternal chaotic world? It's just my guess. I'm not certain about this. Gu King went on. During my journey in the eternal chaotic world along with King Luozhen, I met a great many top experts, and some of them were full of mystery. However, your master is more unfathomable, mysterious than any expert I've met before. How come such an incredible expert was willing to stay within the green fire world? He even has kept a low profile, served as a palace master of a sect and accepted several disciples. Why? What's his intention? Hearing this, Jian Wushuang wrinkled his forehead into a frown. Xianxi's real purpose? Jian Wushuang wondered cluelessly. In his eyes, Xianxia had always been a mysterious, easygoing, and casual elder. Most importantly, Xianxia had treated his disciples very well. He had patiently instructed his several disciples, including Jian Wushuang, in cultivation and gifted them plenty of treasures. Although he had done so much for them, he had never asked them to pay back. Is he really selfless? Or does he think that my 3 senior brothers and I are still too weak to help him? Jian Wushuang thought to himself and then shook his head. Anyway, Master is my savior and I am willing to return his favor even if I need to sacrifice my life. I do not care what his aim is. As long as it does not infringe my principle or it is not evil, I will do my best to help him. Jian Wushuang said, a determined look in his eyes. Gu King stayed silent for a while and then said, Take it easy. I can feel that your master treats you sincerely and he's unlikely to have the intention of utilizing you. If you're really determined to return his kindness, you should try your best to enhance your strength. Now you're not strong enough to pay him back. Jian Wushuang smiled bitterly. He was well aware of that. Although he had stood at the summit of Green Fire World, he still had a long way to go if he wanted to catch up with the top experts in the eternal chaotic world. If he wanted to be of some help to Xianxia, he had to cultivate harder to improve his battle strength. Jian Wushuang, what's your plan? Are you going to head for Star Island? Gu King asked. Star Island. Jian Wushuang repeated to himself. That was where Lineage of Stars chose their disciples. Jian Wushuang had once been a disciple of Lineage of Stars. After passing the trials in the Black Tower on the Star Island, he had been freed from Star Island. However, plenty of people were still trapped there, and some of them were Jian Wushuang's good friends. Besides, Jian Wushuang had made a deal with Tao Master Kong Ming on Star Island. Kong Ming had given him a dragon phoenix fruit in exchange that he must return to Star Island in 100,000 years and try to pass the ultimate trial to set him free. Being a Tao Master now, Jian Wushuang was qualified to accept the ultimate trial on Star Island. I'll go to Star Island one day, but it can be postponed. Now that I've come back to Firmament territory, I plan to have a look at my hometown, Jian Wushuang answered. You hometown? Do you refer to the ancient world? Gu King was stunned. Yeah, Jian Wushuang replied, with a bright smile appearing on his face. He was from the ancient world. He was born and bred in the ancient world. He had been in his hometown for just dozens of years, while spending more than 2,000 years staying in Greenfire World. Despite that, Jian Wushuang still loved his hometown more. The ancient world is my root. I left there 2,000 years ago. I want to know what it looks like now. Is Sword Marquee Mansion still there? Jian Wushuang was eager to come back, clasping his hands. He took leave immediately. As a plain world, the ancient world was just a small part of the Green Fire world. To enter the Green Fire world, the warriors in the ancient world needed to break through a series of barriers and overcome lots of hardships. However, experts in Green Fire world could easily step into the ancient world. Jian Wushuang quickly found the way leading to the ancient world. There were countless ancient worlds, and Jian Wushuang's homeland was one of them. It was called the Divine Land. The waves rolled up on and off above the sea, with the clear, blue sky reflecting in it. A void above the sea began to crack, and the cracks quickly extended and covered hundreds of miles, looking like a huge spider web. All of a sudden, it shattered and a huge space black hole emerged out of nothing. A red-robed figure slowly walked out of the black hole after its appearance. With the arrival of the figure, the black hole, releasing terrifying devouring power, began to shrink. Within a few seconds, it disappeared. The world fell silent again. Here I am, my ancient world. Jian Wushuang was floating on the surface of the sea. He closed his eyes and breathed the air around. He opened his eyes again after a long time, with a joyful smile on his face. I'm back. I come back. Jian Wushuang cried out with a delightful smile. He raised his hand and swished it gently. The surrounding void immediately broke into fragments, and then a crack which extended several thousands of kilometers turned up. The space of the ancient world is indeed delicate. Even one or two eternal realms can easily smash such a world. Jian Wushuang sighed secretly while shaking his head. Soon Jian Wushuang's strength of soul began to spread around the world. His strength of soul covered this world instantly without meeting any obstruction. Nanyang continent is over there. Tianzong dynasty was one of the many dynasties in the Nanyang continent. Small and weak as it was undoubtedly one of the most ancient dynasties in the continent. No one dared to look down on it. When it came to the dynasty, what most people would think of first was not their imperial house. Instead, it was a particular faction. That faction was Sword Marquee Mansion. Sword Marquee Mansion had existed for over 2,000 years. In the beginning, Sword Marquee Mansion was just a small force in Tianzong dynasty. It gradually became the overlord and now enjoyed higher prestige than the imperial house. It even saved the dynasty from hostile occupation 1,000 years ago. Sword Marquee Mansion left other factions and dynasties in the Nanyang continent in awe. It was said that Sword Marquee Mansion owed its prestige to its extraordinary founder born 2,000 years ago. The patriarch's insurmountable power and contributions to the mansion was a legend in itself. Bahui Commandery. The entire Bahui Commandery was now under the control of Sword Marquee Mansion. The base of Sword Marquee Mansion was located in its capital. It was a busy street full of people, making for a boisterous scene. Inside one of the taverns that lined the street, two warriors sitting opposite each other were chatting over food and drinks. Have you heard? Half a month ago, the genius from Sword Marquee Mansion joined the easternmost hunt and claimed the first place among all the talents from 10 dynasties. Rumor has it that this genius won with ease and didn't even use his full power. Of course, everyone has heard of it. He truly deserves his title as the top-notch genius of Sword Marquee Mansion. I remember that he's called Jian Xiaoyao. But if he's that strong, why isn't he on the Earthly Dragon list that Tianzong dynasty issues? Earthly Dragon list? That list only focuses on Tianzong dynasty. It's not a big deal. I heard that Jian Xiaoyao made a name for himself in a large empire and even ranked first among the geniuses there. He's amazing. Of course. Sword Marquee Mansion is also powerful. Their geniuses are all excellent. No one overheard their conversation as the two of them occupied a private room. Yet, a scarlet-robed young man who was sipping wine by the window heard their conversation loud and clear. The liquor here isn't as good as those in the Green Fire world, but there's a unique taste to it. I like it, Jian Wushuang thought, smiling. Then he shouted, "Waiter, bring me 100 jars of this liquor." "Yes, sir," a waiter immediately replied. Jian Wushuang continued to savor the fine liquor, but his mind was busy pondering over the two warriors' words. Jian Xiaoyao, a genius from Sword Marquee Mansion? Since I left 2,000 years ago, I worried that it might have been destroyed. Not only has it survived, but it's becoming even more prosperous. It must be thanks to Uncle Xiao. Through his soul power, he had long detected that there was a puppet fighter inside a deeply hidden secret chamber inside Sword Marquee Mansion. It was a puppet fighter of the divine realm. It was undoubtedly a terrifying existence in the ancient world. It was unlikely that Sword Marquee Mansion acquired the puppet fighter on its own. It must be Emperor Zhao's doing. After all, Jian Wushuang had asked him to take care of Sword Marquee Mansion. The owner of the tavern, with several waiters following behind him with jars of liquor, walked up to Jian Wushuang. "Sir, here is the liquor you asked, 100 jars in total. Would you like to pay it with spiritual liquid or elixirs?" The owner asked, smiling. Jian Wushuang was stunned. It occurred to him that he had just arrived in the Nanyang continent and he did not keep any of the spiritual liquid or elixirs that were used as currencies here. Though he possessed plenty of treasures, they were from the Green Fire world. He did not know if the tavern owner would recognize them. Even if the tavern owner knew them, Jian Wushuang would not trade them for his liquor. Those treasures were so precious that any of them would bring the owner great trouble. "Could you excuse me for a moment? I'll pay the bill later. Of course, I'll be leaving my sword as a pledge for the time being," Jian Wushuang said, handing the owner the Blood Mountain sword. "But—" The owner furrowed his brows as he looked at the sword that Jian Wushuang had placed a layer of restriction on to seal its aura. He used his will to make the sword reveal a hint of its power. Even the faint hint of power frightened the owner. The owner immediately said, "Sir, there's no need to pledge your sword. Just take the liquor." "Oh!" Jian Wushuang raised an eyebrow. "Well, thanks. Don't worry. Someone will come here and pay for my liquor soon." He waved his hand and the liquor disappeared. He then excused himself with a smile. The owner heaved a sigh of relief after watching him leave. "Boss, is that lad an expert? Why did you let him go without taking his sword?" a waiter asked in a whisper. "Expert," the owner replied, narrowing his eyes. "You're right. He is an expert, a genuine one. He must be in the primordial gold core or Yin-Yang void realm at least. I'm sure about this. But why would such a top-notch expert fail to pay for his liquor?" Confused as the owner was, he did not give much thought to this. However, he was clueless to the fact that the young man was tens of thousands times stronger than he had imagined. Jian Wushuang walked toward Sword Marquee Mansion after leaving the tavern. "Jian Wushuang, you're really something to even attempt leaving your Blood Mountain sword behind as a pledge for your bill. If your master finds out, he would probably die of anger," Gu King joked. Jian Wushuang laughed cheerfully. Well, the situation called for it. Just then, a group of people riding wildebeest beasts appeared at the end of the street and slowly strode toward him. A grim-faced young man was in the middle of the group. Young as he looked, his eyes were exceptionally sharp. He had evidently undergone lots of ordeals and troubles. He carried a long sword on his back. Jian Wushuang recognized that long sword at once. Triple kill sword? Looks like he's that incredible genius from Sword Marquee Mansion. Triple kill sword was extremely important to Sword Marquee Mansion. Jian Wushuang recognized it at once, even though the one in the grim-faced young man's hand was reforged. "Looks like I found someone to pay for my liquor." Jian Wushuang grinned. He then walked up to the young man. The moment he took the first step, he morphed into someone else. His scarlet robe was replaced with a rugged sackcloth. He turned into a white-haired and blind old man wearing a pair of torn straw sandals. He disguised himself as a lonely and blind old man walking on the street alone with a bamboo stick in hand. The sound of hooves of the wildebeest beasts became louder as the group of people neared. The pedestrians made way for them except Jian Wushuang. He slowly walked toward the group as if he did not hear anything. Soon the group caught sight of the blind old man. The disciples riding the wildebeest beasts belonged to the younger generation of Sword Marquee Mansion. Several of them showed their anger when they saw an old blind man getting in their way. "Blind old man, did you lose your hearing as well as your vision? Get out of the way or our wildebeest beasts will stomp on you and turn you into a meat pie," a green-robed girl next to Jian Xiaoyao said arrogantly. Oh! The blind old man raised his head with a calm look as he came to a standstill. Do you want to die? Move! She took a long whip from the waist of her wildebeest beast and swung it at the old man. Perhaps the blind old man was in luck. He happened to move to the side and thus dodged her whip. What? The girl's eyes burned with fury. She was about to swing her whip again. Stop! The grim-faced young man's deep and reproachful voice resounded. But the girl in green turned to look at Jian Xiaoyao. Give him some money and ask him to leave, Jian Xiaoyao said. You want me to go? The girl appeared deeply unhappy. Hurry up and do it. Jian Xiaoyao's voice turned cold. The girl dared not to disobey his order. She climbed down from her wildebeest beast and walked up to the blind old man. Come on. I'll take you aside, the girl said impatiently. She subconsciously placed her hand on the old man's shoulder. The blind old man snorted. Which family are you from, little girl? How can you speak to an elder in such a rude manner? Today I'll teach you a lesson in your elder's stead. He raised his bamboo stick and swiped the girl. The old man's action appeared so casual that everyone thought that he was just brandishing the stick as he lectured the girl. Even a smart kid would be able to dodge the stick, never mind the green-robed girl. She was a warrior in the spiritual sea realm. It would almost be too easy for her to do so. However, thwack! The bamboo stick hit her on the butt without facing any obstacle whatsoever. The girl could feel the scorching pain on her butt. She instantly flew into a rage. You old bastard! I'm going to kill you! She screamed furiously. How disobedient! I'll hit you again. The old man once again brandished his stick. Thwack! The girl took another blow on the same place, making her face turn even redder. This time, however, she reacted calmly. She stared at the blind old man, somewhat stupefied. The others were also looking at him with astonishment. Perhaps it was a coincidence that the girl failed to evade the old man's first blow. It was another story now that she had been hit twice. This blind old man. Surprise took hold of the disciples of Sword Marquee Mansion that were riding their wildebeest beasts. Jian Xiaoyao then got off his wildebeest beast and came up to the blind old man. Jian Xiaoyao apologized to the old man with a sincere, humble attitude. Please forgive my cousin, for she didn't mean to offend you. She's still young. Unlike the green-robed girl and other disciples of Sword Marquee Mansion, his abundant experience taught him to never judge a book by its cover. The old man's 2 successive attacks might look simple, but they had successfully hit their target. He knew that he could not belittle this old man. Instead of moving out of the way of a blind old man walking down the street, you made your cousin ask me to leave. You deserve to be punished as well, the old man said, pretending to be unreasonable. He waved his bamboo stick again. He made a simple strike in the manner of a mother punishing her child. Jian Xiaoyao stared at the stick in alarm and moved out of the way before the old man moved the stick. Thwack! Jian Xiaoyao was forced to squat. His eyes were full of shock. The crowd was dumbfounded. The green-robed girl was a weak 14-year-old. However, Jian Xiaoyao was the genius of Sword Marquee Mansion who had just won the first prize in the easternmost hunt. He was the strongest among the experts of the younger generation of the 10 dynasties. It was a shock that he suffered a blow as well. Boy, are you unhappy with the result? You can come and try it again. The old man waved at Jian Xiaoyao with a sly smile on his face. Elder, please advise me, Jian Xiaoyao said with a serious expression. Instead of anger, his eyes were filled with strong excitement. The triple kill sword appeared in Jian Xiaoyao's hand. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. Jian Xiaoyao brandished his sword. The sword moved as slickly as if it was a spiritual snake slithering through the void. How fast! Too fast! Is this the true strength of the champion of the easternmost hunt? The warriors could not help exclaiming when they saw Jian Xiaoyao's performance. But all of a sudden, thwack! The triple kill sword flew out of Jian Xiaoyao's hands. The seemingly powerless bamboo stick struck him and he felt a stinging pain. How is this possible? Jian Xiaoyao was stupefied. He didn't use his spiritual power at all. His power is as weak as that of an ordinary human, and his attack is excruciatingly slow too. How did I end up losing? Even as Xianxia doubted himself, the excitement in his eyes became stronger and stronger. Senior, please advise me again. Xianxia had already picked up his triple kill sword. He stared at the blind old man, his eyes full of great passion and delight. Oh! The old man smiled as he nodded. Xianxia drew out his sword again. His movement was exceedingly fast and powerful, unleashing a torrent of spiritual power that formed a whirlpool. It's the traceless sword skill of Sword Marquis Mansion, someone exclaimed. The old man swung his bamboo stick. Thwack! Xianxiao's triple kill sword was thrown into the air again. Strike again, senior. Xianxia was not discouraged in the least. He picked up the triple kill sword from the ground again and continued to thrust his sword at the old man. What a crafty strike! It looks like a viper. Thwack! The triple kill sword fell to the ground. That's the Blood Moon sword skill of Sword Marquis Mansion. Thwack! The triple kill sword fell to the ground. That's Xianxiao's most powerful attack. Thwack! The triple kill sword ended up on the ground again. Xianxiao launched a series of attacks, going all out with each. Even so, the blind old man continued to brandish his bamboo stick and toss Xianxiao's sword into the air over and over again. What astonished the crowd most was that the old man's movement appeared slow and his blows weak. However, Xianxiao failed to withstand his attacks. Xianxiao had used more than 10 sword skills throughout the dozen rounds of their fight, but ended up losing his sword each time. The outcome was the same even after so many times. The onlookers were all thoroughly dumbfounded. No one had any doubt that this powerless-looking old man harbored an unpredictable strength. Whoosh! Xianxiao took a deep breath before looking at the blind old man with a serious look. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he kowtowed to the old man. I'm Xianxiao. I implore you to take me as your disciple and teach me swordsmanship. Disciple? The genius of Sword Marquis Mansion wants to make this blind old man his master? He's the great genius who won the easternmost hunt. It's rumored that many experts in the Yang Void realm and Divine Transcendence realm wanted him as a disciple, but he had refused them all. But he's now asking to be this old man's disciple. Xianxiao's actions stirred heated discussions among the people on the street. That old man shook his head when he saw Xianxiao kneeling before him. I'm not an expert. I'm not qualified to be your master. Speaking of swordsmanship, I know just one move which I use to punish my grandson. He's a troublemaker and I hit his butt when he makes trouble. Are you willing to learn that? The crowd was confused. Punish his grandson? He's going to teach a technique to hit a child's butt? Yes. Xianxiao kept nodding, his eyes filled with delight and desire. Fine. I'll then impart this to you. The blind old man took a step forward and stopped in front of Xianxiao. He raised his wrinkled hand and pointed at Xianxiao's midbrows. Then he turned around and left. Before leaving, he left a string of words. I owe the Red Sun Tavern some money. Go there and pay my bills off. That's your tuition fee. Xianxiao's eyes were wide open. The scene of the old man brandishing his stick appeared in his mind, giving him a close look at the move that the old man used. Common as it appeared, it was a terrifying show of swordsmanship. It was not until now that Xianxiao realized this. The reason he even thought that the old man's strike was common was that he was weak and his realm was still too low. This is an opportunity. A golden opportunity. Xianxiao clenched his hands as he trembled with delight. He then left for the Red Sun Tavern and paid for the blind old man's liquor. Meanwhile, there were two figures hovering side by side above the street. One was an elegant woman dressed in a black robe, and the other was a middle-aged man in a splendid silver robe. The man emanated an air of majesty. Both of them had been around to witness how the blind old man taught Xianxiao a lesson. Upper Elder, what do you think of this? The middle-aged man asked, looking concerned. He's strong, the elegant woman replied with a serious look. He didn't use his spiritual power or other special powers in his attacks, but still effortlessly tossed Jian Xiaoyao's sword to the ground with technique alone. But I can't see anything special about his strike, she added. She furrowed her brows. It was impossible for an attack, imbued with the strength of an ordinary human, capable of repeatedly unarming Jian Xiaoyao to be ordinary. This could only prove that her realm was still too low. Where's the old man? The middle-aged man looked down at the street with a surprised expression. They had been keeping an eye on the blind old man all along, but in the blink of an eye, he had disappeared. Suddenly, a gentle voice came from behind them. Looking for me? What? Both the elegant woman and the middle-aged man were taken aback. The man was evidently less than a meter away from them, but they did not even know since when he had been standing there. How did both of them fail to notice his arrival? Swish! Swish! When they turned around, they saw the blind old man standing there with a smile on his face and a stick in his hand. He was less than a meter away from them. You? The elegant woman uttered. You youngsters should get a taste of my stick too, the old man said as he brandished his stick. His sudden attack shocked them both. They never expected the old man to target them. They had been watching all along, never stepping in even when he was teaching their disciples a lesson. How did they somehow piss off the old man? Surprised as they were, they did not forget to defend themselves. However, thwack! Thwack! The old man used the stick to knock their weapons out of their hands and hit them without stopping. Their bodies sank downward with the force of his attacks. They continued to crash until they landed near the street. The two of them appeared to be in a miserable condition. Damn it! Both the elegant woman and the middle-aged man were furious. With their distinguished statuses, they had always stood high above the masses. It was difficult for normal people to even see them. Now, the old man had beat them up so badly that they fell near such a crowded street. What? The elegant woman's expression underwent a drastic change. She lowered her head to look at the crowded street below. She was now hovering in the air and stood less than 10 meters above ground. Most people could see her if they just lifted their heads. To her surprise, the woman discovered that everyone on the street was so preoccupied with their affairs that they did not notice her. The crowd ignored her as if she was air. It was as if they were in another world. What's happening? The middle-aged man's eyes widened when he noticed the same. We're right here above the street, but no one noticed us even after all that commotion. What did he do? The elegant woman was dumbfounded. She knew that the pedestrians were neither deaf nor blind. The only possible explanation was that the blind old man had used some powerful skill to temporarily silence their hearing and eyesight. That was why the crowd did not notice them. What an incredible skill! She took a deep breath. She came to realize that she had come across an incredibly formidable expert. You're those youngsters' elders, aren't you? The old man asked coldly as he stood there. The elegant woman and the middle-aged man finally responded after some hesitation. I'm Jianyu, the upper elder of Sword Marquis Mansion. I'm Jianhua, Sword Marquis of Sword Marquis Mansion. Nice to meet you. So one of you is the upper elder and the other is the Sword Marquis. The blind old man smiled. He pointed at Jianyu and said, You look like my old friend from Sword Marquis Mansion. Do you know her? May I know her name? Jianyu asked. Jian Menger, the blind old man answered. Jian Menger. Jianyu was stunned and a hint of terror flitted across her pupils. She was my great-grandmother who passed away 2,000 years ago. Senior, are you really her old friend? Emotions surged wildly in Jianyu and Jianhua. Jian Menger had been one of the most powerful figures in the history of Sword Marquis Mansion. She was also acquainted with the incredible founder of Sword Marquis Mansion, Jian Wushuang. When he disappeared, Jian Menger had managed Sword Marquis Mansion on her own. Though she had been decently talented, the peak of the Yang Void Realm was all she could achieve. Since she had not reached the Saint Realm, she lived mere hundreds of years. It had been over 2,000 years since her death. But this blind old man had introduced himself as Jian Menger's old acquaintance. This man is an old monster who's the same age as my great-grandmother? Jianyu was in shock. Old monster? That was true. Jian Wushuang was considered a youngster with a short cultivation age over in the Green Fire world. But over in the ancient world, a man more than 2,000 years old was undoubtedly an old monster. Your great-grandma and I were old friends. Today, I happened to run into some arrogant juniors from Sword Marquee Mansion. The old man snorted. Sword Marquee Mansion might be influential in the Nanyang continent now, but don't you forget that there are countless experts in this world who are capable of destroying Sword Marquee Mansion. I advise you to keep a low profile or you might end up offending some tough enemy. Moreover, you elders should be monitoring your juniors' behavior. You can't let them bully others in the name of Sword Marquee Mansion. Most importantly, never forget your past suffering. Don't forget that Sword Marquee Mansion was weak once. It owes its influence and prestige today to all its past hardships. Us members of Sword Marquee Mansion will bear your words in mind. Jian Yu replied respectfully. Well, that's quite enough. Those words just came to mind. The blind old man waved his hand. Besides, I have a manual of swordsmanship with me. Now it's yours. You can discuss how to utilize it. He threw a token and then vanished. Jian Yu and Jian Hua looked at each other in confusion. Upper Elder, who was that? Jian Hua asked, frowning. I have no idea. Jian Yu shook her head. He looks like a good man who bears no malice towards Sword Marquee Mansion. Besides, he left us a manual. His words and actions show his dissatisfaction with our current situation. It seems that he's disappointed with us. Is he really my great-grandmother's acquaintance? Perhaps. But he reminded me that our rising influence in the Nanyang continent in recent years has attracted the attention of many forces. Moreover, it's true that our juniors are increasingly unruly, the middle-aged man said. One of our clansmen had recently slaughtered a faction of Tianzong dynasty with his men for a woman's sake, but our elders merely turned a blind eye to this. One of our geniuses assassinated a talent with a higher ranking on the earthly dragon list. What the hell are they doing? Why didn't you bring this up before? Jian Yu asked in a reproachful tone, her eyes turning razor-sharp. I only found out a couple of days ago. Sword Marquee Mansion seems strong and united on the surface, but it has been divided into many clans fighting for their own benefits. Though I'm the Sword Marquee, I'm incapable of changing this situation on my own. After all, I have to balance these clans. Those useless fools. Jian Yu's voice was terribly cold. That elder is right. We've been comfortable for so long that many of us have forgotten how we had struggled to become stronger. It seems that we should start cleaning up our act. It's time for those elders to learn a lesson or two. I'm too weak to achieve this myself, but it's possible with your support, Jian Hua replied. Then just go for it. We owe our current position to our great ancestor. Without him, Sword Marquee Mansion would have perished a long time ago. He had tried so hard to lay the foundation for us. We can't let those pests ruin his efforts. Jian Yu clenched her hands, her eyes flashing with firm determination. Oh right, the elder left us a manual. She stared at the token in her hand. She allowed her consciousness to enter the token. Then all of a sudden her eyes opened wide. Terrifying. What a terrifying swordsmanship. Do you mean the manual that the elder gave us? He knows such terrifying swordsmanship and used such amazing skills. Who is he? He can't be great-grandmother's old acquaintance. Her great-grandmother had merely reached the peak of the Yang Void Realm and had not befriended any high-standing individuals. Yet that blind old man had called himself her old friend. If he knew great-grandmother, why did he only return after 2,000 years? Moreover, if he was just a friend, he had no reason to care about Sword Marquee Mansion. He had been so disappointed earlier. He's not my great-grandmother's old acquaintance. I think he has a close connection to Sword Marquee Mansion. Perhaps he's one of our ancestors. Our ancestor? Jian Yu was stunned. Is he our patriarch? Their founder was a legend in the history of Sword Marquee Mansion. Yes, that's him. He's undoubtedly our patriarch. Jian Yu exclaimed with excitement. Our patriarch's disappearance back then was a mystery. Some suggested that he didn't die but left for a vast world to pursue higher cultivation. He must have returned from that world. He showed up to teach us a lesson after noticing our internal corruption. He intended to enlighten us. Patriarch. He's our patriarch. Jian Yu was thrilled. It took her a while to calm down and she grasped the token tightly. From now on, the swordsmanship inside this token is the most precious treasure in Sword Marquee Mansion. Only the most talented is qualified to learn it, and he must take a blood oath to never impart it to others. Whoever breaks the oath will be disposed of as a traitor. Jian Wushuang returned to his own appearance after reappearing in the void. He took slow steps, but the span of each step covered thousands of miles. Why did you pretend to be a blind old man to teach your juniors a lesson instead of revealing your identity? Gu King asked. Reveal my identity? Jian Wushuang shook his head. Before setting foot in the Nanyang continent, he had intended to reunite with his juniors of Sword Marquee Mansion as himself. However, he changed his mind after walking into the tavern outside Sword Marquee Mansion. He had spent half a day staying there, and while he drank alone, his soul power had already covered the whole city. He had heard many conversations between warriors as well as between commoners. Certain conversations taking place in private quarters were particularly eye-opening. It was not until he heard these conversations that he realized how bad the corruption and disunity in the current Sword Marquee Mansion had become. Factions are formed and fellow clansmen plot against one another. In the fight for more interests, some even lay hands on another in private. Most disciples of the younger generation are snobs who bully others without concern for consequences. Jian Wushuang said with a grim expression. They're conceited and fearless even without me around. Won't they become even more audacious if I reappear in public, thinking that I have their backs? He did not want to see the current situation in Sword Marquee Mansion. He had shown up to punish junior disciples and even two elders, Jian Yu and Jian Hua, as a warning for them to keep a low profile and realize the crisis within Sword Marquee Mansion. I've done all that I should do. The future of Sword Marquee Mansion is up to them now, Jian Wushuang murmured. He had done more than enough, be it doling out advice or punishment. He had no intention of interfering with the development of Sword Marquee Mansion. In fact, he did not even mind its decline, as long as it could be inherited from generation to generation. After all, he could not stay here and guard Sword Marquee Mansion forever. What's your next move? Gu King asked. Let's head for the Divine Land now. I'm worried that girl can't hang on any longer. Jian Wushuang answered with a smile. A girl? Does she have anything to do with you? Gu King asked. You'll know when we arrive there. Jian Wushuang continued his journey at full speed. It did not take him long to reach the Divine Land from the Nanyang continent without even taking the wormhole. The Divine Land was the core of this realm. The ancient world was under its control. Back when Jian Wushuang first roamed the Divine Land, there were 3 ancestors, 9 sovereigns, and 72 marquises here. These were all top figures of the Divine Land. However, it had been 2,000 years. Things had changed a lot, as did the layout of the Divine Land. Now, 4 influential factions ruled over the Divine Land. The 4 forces were under the leadership of 4 overlords. One of them was called Wushuang Sword Pavilion. Wushuang Sword Pavilion appeared 2,000 years ago. Its founder was a woman named Lin Lan. Lin Lan used to be one of the 72 marquises. Her cultivation speed had been fast but not impressive. But later, she made great progress and entered the skyscraping realm within 100 years. Since then, she was one of the most powerful experts in the ancient world. The warriors of the Divine Land respectfully called her Queen Lanyue. Under her leadership, Wushuang Sword Pavilion had existed in harmony with the other factions in the Divine Land for the past 2,000 years. However, in recent years, Wushuang Sword Pavilion had turned against Spirit Palace, one of the 4 overlords. Both parties had descended into endless ferocious fights. In the beginning, the 2 overlords had been evenly matched. But later, Wushuang Sword Pavilion was soon placed at a disadvantage. Today, Spirit Palace had directly broken into their stronghold. Wushuang Sword Pavilion was located on a vast land among the giant mountains. Bang! 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 Deafening explosions resounded in succession. the sound reverberating throughout the mountains. The whole Wushuang Sword Pavilion had fallen into a state of manic slaughter. Haha, Lin Lan? Or should I call you the famous Queen Lanyue? I said that one day, I will completely wipe out your Wushuang Sword Pavilion and make you mine. Today you can't run, can you? A tall, bald man was waving his big axe and laughing wildly. His opponent was a glamorous and beautiful woman. This woman had a perfect body and face, and most importantly, a very noble and incomparable temperament. Queen Lanyue was crowned the female emperor because she had always held a high status. For more than 2,000 years, her Wushuang Sword Pavilion had never been touched. Her title of the female emperor was well-deserved. Well, you're not qualified to mess with me yet. The voice of Queen Lanyue was cold and fierce. With an air of majesty, she swept her long sword and broke out her full strength of skyscraping realm. There were many strong players on the field, but no one could confront her. Even the talkative bald man who was the palace master of Spirit Palace in skyscraping realm had to admit that Queen Lanyue was definitely much better than him. Haha, I can't touch you, but someone can and will. The bald man laughed and looked at Void next to him. Master Kong, it's your turn. Master Kong. Queen Lanyue's eyes narrowed. The bald man was in the skyscraping realm and could beat all of the divine land experts. Who was qualified to make him respectfully call master? Soon she saw Master Kong. It turned out to be a chubby elder who had a pair of eyes as small as those of mouses. This chubby old man slowly walked over and soon appeared in front of Queen Lanyue. Is she Queen Lanyue? The chubby old man looked Queen Lanyue as if she had been an ant. That's her, the bald man respectfully said. Queen Lanyue looked grave. Normally, with her strength in ancient world, no one should be able to fear her. However, when the chubby old man appeared in front of her, she had an instinct feeling of terror and even pictured herself losing the battle. This chubby old man stood there, and Queen Lanyue did not even have the courage to fight back. Who are you? She clenched her teeth, suppressed her fear hard, and shouted. I'm Kong Ming. The chubby old man spoke. Queen Lanyue's heart sank. She never heard of a formidable expert called Kong Ming, not only on divine land but also in other ancient worlds. The horror that this Kong Ming brought to her. You are from the eternal world? Queen Lanyue asked coldly. You are not stupid. The chubby old man smiled and confessed. I heard that you have been collecting the ancient world tokens for many years. You want to go to the eternal world, right? In addition, I also heard from the place master of Spirit Palace that you have a master. Your Wushuang Sword Pavilion is named after him. Your master is said to have gone to Eternal World by ancient world tokens more than 2,000 years ago. If I'm right, you want to go to Eternal World to find your master, right? Haha, what a good apprentice. Unfortunately, you misunderstand the Eternal World. Your master might be something in the ancient world, but once he reaches the Eternal World, he will find that he is just a cockroach. In the Eternal World, there are a lot of people stronger than him. He went to the Eternal World alone, and I'm afraid that he would have died long ago. Upon hearing this, Queen Lanyue clenched her teeth and suppressed her anger. She respected her master most in her entire life. Her master reinvented her. She attributed her current achievements entirely to her master Jian Wushuang. In her heart, her master was the same as God. Thus, even when she created her own force, she named it after her master. In recent years, as the Firmament Territory Feast was about to open again, she had desperately collected the ancient world tokens only to keep up with the pace of her master. Now, when she heard such nonsense, she would naturally turn furious. At this time, Kong Ming spoke once again. Since you really want to go to the Eternal World, I can help you. From today, you will be with me and serve me. If you do a great job, when I recover, I'll take you to the Eternal World and even find your master. How about that? Hearing this, Queen Lanyue was even more angered. Why? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Are you reluctant? Kong Ming smirked. Master Kong. The Spirit Palace master frowned. He also longed for a woman like Queen Lanyue. Who in the world did not want to conquer a peerless woman like her? Do you have a problem with that? Kong Ming peeked sideways at the Spirit Palace Master. No, I don't. The Spirit Palace Master shook his head fearfully. Well, you just follow my orders and make preparations in time so that I can quickly recover. I'll get everything you want. But if you can't help me, you have to die either. Kong Ming scolded. Yes, my lord. The Spirit Palace Master nodded in a row, in fear that Master Kong would be unhappy. He knew very clearly that this Master Kong, despite being seriously injured and lesser than his usual strength, could still kill him like an ant. Queen Lanyue, I'm not that patient. Do you really want to give away this opportunity? Kong Ming glimpsed her one more time. You want me to serve you? You wish. Queen Lanyue shouted coldly. Oh? You're not willing to? Kong Ming cocked one eyebrow and smiled coolly. Then I'll have to do it the hard way. Finishing his words, he waved his hand and summoned a huge palm. The giant hand appeared, and the whole world shook. The surrounding void cracked. Huge space rifts appear, and all the engaged people in Wushuang's sword pavilion stopped and fled. In moments, the giant hand approached Queen Lanyue. Queen Lanyue's teeth were gritted, and her body was shaking. Watching the giant hand approaching her, she desperately wanted to resist, but she found herself unable to move. Is this the end? Queen Lanyue muttered, showing a desperate look. Suddenly, the rushing huge palm disappeared. Without a sign, it vanished into the void. The overwhelming power contained in the palm disappeared without a trace. This is? She looked dumbfounded. Everyone present appeared baffled. On the other hand, all color had left the face of the owner of the huge palm, Kong Ming. Who is it? Kong Ming retorted, and his voice echoed throughout the heavens and earth, lingering for a long time. At that time, in the distant sky, a scarlet-robed figure appeared and was slowly approaching Kong Ming. Although he was slow, he had walked a long way with merely 2 steps, arriving at the center of the battlefield. The figure stopped. It was a figure of a young man who was carrying a long sword. As he waved his sleeves, the whole world went completely quiet. Seeing the person, Kong Ming squinted and cast a cold look. Queen Lanyue stared at the person in disbelief. Who are you? Asked Kong Ming in a low voice. Me? Jian Wushuang was smiling faintly. Didn't you just mention me? Mentioned you? Kong Ming paused thoughtfully before he realized. You are Queen Lanyue's master? Yes, I am her master. As for the name, it's Jian Wushuang. I wonder if you have heard of it. Jian Wushuang remained calm. A junior who just has lived for more than 2,000 years. How will I know you? Kong Ming snorted, full of disdain in his heart. When Jian Wushuang quietly undid his attack, he thought that he might be very strong and perhaps reached Eternal Realm. When he knew who Jian Wushuang was, he did not bother to pay attention to him. He's only been in the Eternal World for 2,000 years. In such a short time, even if he's somewhat talented, what level can he reach? A Divine Realm expert is the best he can be. Kong Ming thought to himself. He was an Eternal Realm and was among the best ones. In the whole wide world, only few top Dao Masters were worthy of his attention. It was not every day you got to see a Dao Master. Being in the Eternal World for 2,000 years, how could he become a Dao Master? How could he be? Naturally, Kong Ming did not pay close attention to Jian Wushuang. This ancient world belongs to the Firmament Territory, where I'm famous. Every Eternal Realm should know my name by now. However, if Kong Ming doesn't know me, that means he didn't come from the Firmament Territory. Jian Wushuang folded his hands behind his back with a rather strange look. After he came to the ancient world, he had deliberately concealed his own aura to stay under Kong Ming's radar. And looking at the current situation, Kong Ming really did not take him seriously. Jian Wushuang, I want your disciple as my maid and take her to the Eternal World. You're fine with that, aren't you? Kong Ming put on airs, looked at Jian Wushuang, and laid all his Eternal Realm aura onto Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang did not know whether to cry or to laugh. An Eternal Realm tried to lay pressure on him by his aura? There are a lot of people who are ignorant under the sun. You are one of them. Jian Wushuang smiled and spoke. You want to take my disciple to the ancient world? I certainly have no problems with that, but I have one condition. What condition? Kong Ming thought that Jian Wushuang had been completely overwhelmed by his eternal realm aura. You have to return to the eternal world. Jian Wushuang teased. Kong Ming looked stunned. You are playing with fire, kid. As he finished, Kong Ming stretched to tap at Jian Wushuang from a distance. The stroke shattered the fragile void in this ancient world. The whole world seemed to be torn into pieces. It was a scene that could shake the world. The scene struck fear into the hearts of warriors from both Wushuang Sword Pavilion and Spirit Palace. God! This is the power that God has. Does God really want to destroy our Wushuang Sword Pavilion? The Wushuang Sword Pavilion warriors growled. Queen Lanyue was panicked and worried. Kong Ming was full of killing intents, although he was seriously injured and could not play 1% of his strength. However, even if 1% of his power was enough to kill a normal divine realm expert. Abruptly, buzz, a breeze passed. The collapsed and ruined world quickly recovered. Kong Ming's stroke quietly dissipated without a trace. What? Kong Ming was stunned. Jian Wushuang glanced up coldly. Jian Wushuang's cold eyes left Kong Ming awestruck. He was frozen on the spot. His hairs stood up at once. I... Kong Ming opened his mouth, but could not say a word. Unprecedented fear snatched his heart. Only at this moment had he finally known who was standing in front of him. Dao Master? Is he a Dao Master? Kong Ming's eyes widened. Die! Jian Wushuang blew a breath, and a sword essence formed. Though seemingly small, it left Kong Ming in great terror. He snarled. Don't you dare! My master is Dao Master Bloodtusk. I am Dao Master Bloodtusk's disciple. Oh! Jian Wushuang cocked an eyebrow, and the immaterial sword essence that was rushed toward Kong Ming stopped in the void. Kong Ming swallowed, and looked at the immaterial sword essence in terror. Then immediately he crushed a token. As soon as the token was broken, there was a spectral image that was completely formed by consciousness appeared in the world. This consciousness spectral image formed the appearance of a red-haired elder, who sounded kind of evil. I wonder which Dao Master wants to kill my disciple. Dao Master Bloodtusk wants to meet him. The spectral image of the red-haired cold elder appeared in the world. It was only a spectral image of consciousness, but it still carried the power enough to destroy this entire ancient world. Seeing the red-haired cold elder, many surrounding warriors trembled and could not help but feel a feeling of worship. It was like seeing a real god. In fact, with his strength, the red-haired cold elder did hold a godlike position in the ancient world. Master! Kong Ming was elated and started to regain his confidence. So what if you're a Dao Master? My master is the famous Dao Master Bloodtusk in the eternal world. Kong Ming scorned Jian Wushuang in his heart. Dao Master Bloodtusk? Jivan Wushuang smiled strangely. He heard of Dao Master Bloodtusk. He was a Dao Master at the peak of rank 2, and was indeed a strong expert even on Void Continent. Moreover, he was said to be a protege of Ape Holy Master. With a benefactor like that, he really had a good reason to look down the entire Void Continent experts. Is it you that wants to kill my disciple? The consciousness spectral image of Dao Master Bloodtusk looked at Jian Wushuang. Yes, it's me. What do you propose? Jian Wushuang smirked. Do you want to stop me by a spectral image of consciousness? Well, I can't really. But mark my words, if you dare to touch my disciple, I'll guarantee that, on the entire Void Continent, there'll be no place for you. Dao Master Bloodtusk warned in a cold tone. Oh! Jian Wushuang cocked an eyebrow and laughed. You really can talk, but I don't know where such confidence came from. Just because Ape Holy Master is backing you? Do you know Ape Holy Master? Dao Master Bloodtusk immediately frowned. Ape Holy Master was the absolute overlord of Void Continent, and the monarch of North Sea Kingdom of the 4 big countries. He had both strength and influence. On Void Continent, almost no one dared to mess with him. But now, the scarlet-robed young man, who knew Ape Holy Master was backing him, still looked confident, as if he did not take Ape Holy Master seriously. Kid, who are you? Dao Master Bloodtusk glared at Jian Wushuang. I am just an ordinary person from the ancient world. I have just entered the eternal world about 2,000 years ago. As for my name, I am afraid it'll disturb you. Jian Wushuang smiled. Disturb me? Dao Master Bloodtusk was disdainful. Master, this person is called Jian Wushuang, and he has only been in the eternal world for 2,000 years. I do not know how he got to be a Dao Master, Kong Ming added. However, hearing Kong Ming, Dao Master Bloodtusk's consciousness spectral image froze on the spot. His originally cold face turned into a shocked one, with terror in his eyes. What is his name again? Dao Master Bloodtusk teeth chattered from fear. His name is Jian Wushuang. What's the matter? Kong Ming was in doubt. Hearing Kong Ming confirmed, Dao Master Bloodtusk was awestruck and dazed. Jian Wushuang? Among the top powerhouses on Void Continent, how many of them did not know Jian Wushuang? Although he had never seen him, he had heard Jian Wushuang numerous times from Ape Holy Master and many other Dao Masters. He actually had been a headache and a monster in Ape Holy Master's eyes. And now, he told the monster that he would leave him no place on Void Continent? Had he really said that? Master Jian Wushuang. Dao Master Bloodtusk spoke again. But this time his voice trembled. His words left the whole battlefield in chaos. And Kong Ming was completely stunned. Master? His master Dao Master Bloodtusk actually called him Master after hearing his name? Didn't you call the opponent Master only when the opponent was too strong to be messed with? Could it be that this Jian Wushuang, who had only been in the eternal world for 2,000 years, made his master Dao Master Bloodtusk scared? Moon Queen Lan, as well as many disciples of the Wushuang Sword Pavilion, were stunned. Although they did not know how strong Dao Master Bloodtusk was, they knew that Kong Ming was already formidable, and his master must be even more mighty. But the very Dao Master Bloodtusk actually became so scared after hearing Jian Wushuang's name? In 2,000 years, what had Jian Wushuang gone through? What level had he reached? Dao Master Bloodtusk. Jian Wushuang spoke, and the voice was still bland. I'll take your disciple's life. No problem. Dao Master Bloodtusk answered. This damn thing has actually offended you. He deserves to die. Even if you don't do it, I will personally kill him when we return to the eternal world. Master. Kong Ming's eyes widened and he looked shocked. His master had always been looking for the disciples, but now he did not hesitate to throw him away. Obviously, his master was terrified of the Dao Master called Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang squinted and the immaterial sword essence that had been suspended in the void once again plucked. This time, it directly shot into Kong Ming's head, crushed his life core. Kong Ming died on the spot. This scene made Spirit Palace Master tremble and dare not to move. As for you, Jian Wushuang peeked at Dao Master Bloodtusk's consciousness spectral image and muttered, You'd better stay in the place where you live now, and it's best not to tell anyone about it today. I have already reported it to Ape Holy Master. Dao Master Bloodtusk was horrified. Oh? Just him. Jian Wushuang looked cold. Yes, just him. Dao Master Bloodtusk nodded quickly. All right, off you go. Jian Wushuang waved. Master, so today... Dao Master Bloodtusk carefully looked at Jian Wushuang. I'll let it go. Jian Wushuang answered. Thank you, Master. Dao Master Bloodtusk felt relieved and bowed respectfully. Then his consciousness spectral image disappeared in the void. Jian Wushuang looked in the direction where Dao Master Bloodtusk vanished. Dao Master Bloodtusk did not know that even if Jian Wushuang let him off, that did not mean others would not. The news that Jian Wushuang was still alive was a top secret. Only 5 Palace Masters knew it. Now Dao Master Bloodtusk and Ape Holy Master knew it. One could imagine what would happen next. Deep in a stretch of mountains there was a huge blood-red castle. This blood-colored castle was where Dao Master Bloodtusk lived. In the deepest part of the castle, Dao Master Bloodtusk was leaning on the bed. Get out, all of you! Dao Master Bloodtusk's growl rang throughout the castle. The maids who were serving and the beautiful dancers in front of him all withdrew. Dao Master Bloodtusk rose up and looked terrible. Idiot! I shouldn't have accepted him as my disciples. He used to be careless. Being hunted down by his enemies, he fled to the ancient world. I managed to get rid of the enemy for him. He'll only need some time to recover and then return to Greenfire World. I did not expect this idiot actually went to mess with Jian Wushuang. How could he mess with Jian Wushuang? Not even Ape Holy Master dares to confront him. Jian Wushuang can kill me so easily. Being in the Eternal Realm, why did him mess with Jian Wushuang? Idiot. Really stupid. Dao Master Blood Tusk madly cursed. Although Kong Ming was dead, Dao Master Blood Tusk still wanted to resurrect him, in order to kill him with cruel means. It was really a formidable person that he had offended this time. After a long time, Dao Master Blood Tusk gradually calmed down. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang was nice. I bowed and apodized. He just let me off. Otherwise, Dao Master Blood Tusk could not help feeling fearful. If Jian Wushuang really wanted him dead, then he would stand no place of surviving in Greenfire World. Anyway, I'm still alive. Dao Master Blood Tusk let out a sigh of relief. But at this time, what? Dao Master Blood Tusk sensed something. He noticed that two auras had entered his castle, and in a moment they appeared in front of him. They were a man and a woman, and their auras were very energetic, which both reached the rank 3 Dao Master level. Master Yen and Master Ku, what brings you two here? Dao Master Blood Tusk immediately got up and greeted. Among the 18 masters of Void Temple, he could not afford to offend any of them. Naturally, he greeted respectfully. Dao Master Blood Tusk, we're here under Temple Master's orders to kill you, Master Ku said directly. What? Dao Master Blood Tusk was greatly shocked and exclaimed. To kill me? How is this possible? I have never offended the Void Temple. How will the Void Temple Master order to kill me? Have you mistaken? Temple Master issued the order himself. We couldn't have made a mistake. Now prepare to die. Master Ku's voice was cold, and the next moment he struck directly. No, it's impossible. How can he want me dead for no reason? Dao Master Blood Tusk resisted as he screamed wildly. I'll report it to Ape Holy Master. Ape Holy Master will help me. Ape Holy Master? Master Ku laughed. He can hardly protect himself now. How can he manage to help you? Master Ku and Master Yen had prepared for a long time. Before they started, they laid a restriction around the castle so that Dao Master Blood Tusk had no way to escape. Even the message could not be transmitted again. Only for a moment Dao Master Blood Tusk was killed. On the other side, in the distant North Sea Kingdom, Ape Holy Master was alone in the secret room cultivating a secret skill. Suddenly, a figure came, and at the same time, an immaterial power had covered the entire secret room to stop any message from going out. Void Temple Master? Ape Holy Master looked at the person who appeared in front of him in surprise. The Supreme Void Temple Master on Void Continent, one of Greenfire Palace Masters, actually appeared in front of him in the flesh. Void Temple Master. Ape Holy Master immediately respectfully saluted. What brings you here? Ape Holy Master. Is Dao Master Blood Tusk your protégés? Void Temple Master sounded indifferent. Yes, he is. Ape Holy Master nodded subconsciously. Not long ago. Did this Dao Master Blood Tusk send a message to you? Void Temple Master asked again. Yes, he did. Ape Holy Master nodded again. He told me that in the ancient world, he saw Jian Wushuang. That's right. Void Temple Master's eyes became cold. Temple Master, what's wrong? Ape Holy Master was in doubt. This secret room is already protected. I might as well tell you that he's already capable to be a Greenfire Palace Master. And he has a great potential. He will definitely become the Greenfire Palace leader. Void Temple Master commented. Become a leader? Jian Wushuang. Ape Holy Master widened his eyes. Being a Holy Master and a member of the Greenfire Palace, though he did not live in the Greenfire Palace and was not kept posted, he knew that the leaders of Greenfire Palace were all formidable. He had met with Jian Wushuang and even bore hostility toward him. But the hostility only came from the battle between North Sea Kingdom and Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land. It was nothing personal. He also acknowledged Jian Wushuang's talent. When the three big countries joined forces to attack Kingdom Tang of the Eastern Land, Jian Wushuang came to their rescue. But he never expected that Jian Wushuang had grown so much in such a short time. He was talented. Thus the Jin Kingdom has tried to assassinate him at all costs. And in that assassination he was dead, said Void Temple Master. Dead? But... Ape Holy Master froze and looked up at Void Temple Master. He had guessed why Void Temple Master came to him in person. I think you should already understand. Void Temple Master looked down. His survival is a top secret. Even in Green Fire Palace, only Palace Masters know about it. But now you learn the secret. Ape Holy Master was feeling helpless. He never wanted to learn it, though. It was Dao Master Bloodtusk that told him the secret. Dao Master Bloodtusk has been killed. Well, you're one of our Green Fire Palace and a valuable soldier. I won't kill you, but it can't let you stay on Void Continent anymore, so... Until Jian Wushuang becomes the leader of the Green Fire Palace to deal with the Jin Kingdom, you have to stay in my Oblivion Palace. When his words were finished, he did not give Ape Holy Master any chance to resist. With a flick of his hand, a great palace fell on Ape Holy Master. Ape Holy Master looked helpless and he did not want to resist. He knew very well that since Void Temple Master struck, his resistance would be futile, and if Void Temple Master did not kill him, he was being merciful. Blood Tusk, goddamn Blood Tusk, why did you send messages to me? Ape Holy Master cursed in his heart. In the end, he was suppressed by the Great Palace. During the following years, until the Jin Kingdom knew Jian Wushuang's survival, Ape Holy Master had to live in the palace. After suppressing Ape Holy Master, Void Temple Master once again disappeared. At the same time, Jian Wushuang learned the news that Dao Master Bloodtusk was killed, and Ape Holy Master was suppressed by Void Temple Master. Oh, poor Ape Holy Master. He did not do anything, but still became imprisoned just because I am still alive. Jian Wushuang stood at the top of an attic, contemplating. At this time, Lin Lan came in. Master! Lin Lan directly crouched in front of Jian Wushuang and bowed respectfully. Get up! Jian Wushuang waved and a strength lifted Lin Lan up. You've really grown in the last 2,000 years. You actually became Queen Lanyue. Jian Wushuang smiled. It's all because of you, my master, Lin Lan respectfully said. When Jian Wushuang left the ancient world, he granted her a lot of swordsmanships, manuals, and treasures. In the end, she reached the peak by them. I did give you some things at the beginning, but you've achieved this all by yourself. Jian Wushuang waved. In addition, your strength is really rare in this ancient world, but if you put it in the eternal world, it's nothing. In the end, the ancient world is still too small, too small. In a few days, I will return to the eternal world. If you are willing to, I will take you there. Jian Wushuang looked into Lin Lan's eyes. I'm willing to. Lin Lan was pleasantly surprised. That's good. I will give you 10 days to let you deal with affairs of Wushuang Sword Pavilion and the ancient world. 10 days later, we'll set off. Jian Wushuang said. Yes. Lin Lan heavily nodded and went to arrange affairs of Wushuang Sword Pavilion. On the other hand, Jian Wushuang got to travel around the Divine Land. It had been 2,000 years, things had changed. On Divine Land today, he could hardly find an acquaintance. Naturally, there was no one for him to visit. He just visited some places he used to be familiar with. 10 days passed quickly. In these 10 days, Lin Lan disbanded Wushuang Sword Pavilion. After all, she built Wushuang Sword Pavilion. The fight with Spirit Palace inflicted great damage on them. If she left, the pavilion would soon be dismembered by other sects and forces. In this case, she simply disbanded Wushuang Sword Pavilion and distributed all the treasures that she had accumulated, so that the disciples could have their own way out in the future. All right, let's go. Jian Wushuang single-handedly stroked to break the void and then took Lin Lan into the Green Fire World. When he returned to Green Fire World again, Jian Wushuang took Lin Lan to Ancient Sect and visited Xianxia. Master, this is the disciple I received in the ancient world more than 2,000 years ago. Her name is Lin Lan. I want to accommodate her here, and I hope that you can take care of her, said Jian Wushuang. Your disciple? Isn't that my disciple's disciple? Xianxia smiled gently and looked at Lin Lan. Lin Lan, greet your grandmaster. Lin Lan respectfully said. Well, her talent and potential seem pretty good. It's a shame that there wasn't a suitable platform in the ancient world, but it is different in the eternal world. You can rest assured, I'll take care of this little girl. Soon the Firmament Territory Feast will be held again. I'll bring her, Xianxia said. Thank you, my master, Jian Wushuang replied. Having accommodated Lin Lan, Jian Wushuang bid farewell to Xianxia and then left the Firmament Territory again. Having visited the ancient world, Jian Wushuang went to the Stellar Fog Sea. The Stellar Fog Sea on Void Continent had long been a mystery. Not even the many experts in Green Fire Palace, including the 5 Palace Masters, knew what was in the Stellar Fog Sea. But Jian Wushuang knew very clearly. The Stellar Fog Sea was actually a place for the Star Bloodline to choose disciples. Through the space wormhole of the Void Temple, Jian Wushuang quickly arrived at the edge of the Stellar Fog Sea. He did not hesitate and directly entered it. He saw vast gray fog, which not only blocked one's view, but also stopped snooping from others. But Jian Wushuang's strength of soul had not been hindered. Jian Wushuang had been a disciple of the Star Bloodline. As soon as he entered the Stellar Fog Sea, Lord Spirit Sound on Star Island noticed him. Different from other Green Fire World Dao Masters who would be blocked outside, Jian Wushuang was not hindered and directly entered deep into the Stellar Fog Sea. It didn't take long for him to approach the central Star Island of the Stellar Fog Sea. On Star Island, there were still a lot of warriors. Friends like Linglong, Chen Yu, Zidong, and Dao Master Kong Ming, who had an agreement with Jian Wushuang, stayed there as well. Swoosh! When Jian Wushuang appeared on Star Island and his aura came out, the broad Star Island suddenly shook. A Dao Master aura? Did someone on the Star Island break through to the Dao Master level? No, although there are many people on the Star Island who are able to break through, they all suppress themselves. No one is willing to do it. It should be a newcomer, a new Dao Master. A group of people rushed, including the 5 Dao Masters standing on the top of the Star Island. They were all alarmed and rushed over. When they stopped in front of Jian Wushuang, saw his face, they immediately recognized him. It's Blood Mountain. Is the Blood Mountain that left the island more than 1,000 years ago? He actually came back? Blood Mountain. When Jian Wushuang lived on the Star Island, he used the pseudonym Blood Mountain. Blood Mountain. His 3 friends Linglong, Zidong, and Chen Yu were all present. All of you. I haven't seen you in ages. You're doing all right? Jian Wushuang smiled. Blood Mountain, I knew you will come back. You came to take us away, right? Chen Yu sounded excited. Well, I plan to, but I don't know if I can. Jian Wushuang replied. Blood Mountain, you've grown stronger than before, right? Zidong's eyes flashed with excitement. There had been 12 kings on the island, among whom Zidong always ranked the first, and he was the only one that passed the second test of the 3 tests of the Black Tower. Later, Jian Wushuang became the first one to pass 3 tests and left the Star Island. However, Zidong was still stuck in the level 2. Zidong naturally felt a little disheartened. Your strength must have improved and can pass the 3rd test, right? Jian Wushuang smiled. I am still far away from that. Zidong shrugged. Jian Wushuang spent some time chatting with his 3 friends. Blood Mountain. A deep voice rang, and a middle-aged man wearing a cyan gown and a stubble came over. Oh, Dao Master Kong Ming? Jian Wushuang grinned. Dao Master Kong Ming stopped in front of Jian Wushuang and looked him up and down. Finally, he nodded slightly and said, My agreement with you is that you return to the Star Island within 100,000 years. But now it has been less than 2,000 years, and you already returned? Have you already obtained the strength to overcome the ultimate test? I can't know for sure, but I can try, Jian Wushuang said. He didn't know what the ultimate test was, and naturally he didn't dare to guarantee. Oh, Dao Master Kong Ming cocked an eyebrow. It looks like you're quite confident. You might say so. Jian Wushuang smiled and nodded. If he was not confident, he would not have come to the Star Island so soon. However, just as Jian Wushuang finished, "Since my friend is so confident, I wonder if I can have a friendly competition with you." A gentle voice suddenly sounded. It was an old man in a gray robe. Standing next to him were three people whose aura had reached the level of Tao Master. The 5 Tao Masters on the Star Island were all present. "This is?" Jian Wushuang looked at the gray-robed elder. "This is Tao Master Thousand Water, who is the oldest and the most capable of the 5 Tao Masters on our Star Island." Tao Master Kong Ming introduced. "Oh!" Jian Wushuang cocked one eyebrow. "Indeed, I'm the strongest of the 5. However, I'm still not qualified for the ultimate test yet." The gray-robed elder Thousand Water Tao said, "Since my friend aims at the ultimate test, then you have to be stronger than me in strength. I wonder if you're capable enough. Since Tao Master Thousand Water is interested, then it'll be disrespectful to decline, please." Jian Wushuang smiled in reply. "My friend, be careful," Tao Master Thousand Water reminded, and then a strong spiritual power surging on him. The pure power was far more powerful than an ordinary rank 3-peak Tao Masters. However, he still failed to compare with a holy master. Under the surging mighty spiritual power, Tao Master Thousand Water stretched to slap Jian Wushuang lightning fast. In an instant, a vast mountain aimed directly at Jian Wushuang. The power had definitely reached the level of Holy Master. He's only a Tao Master, but has the strength of a Holy Master. Tao Master Thousand Water is not weak. Jian Wushuang faintly smiled, and when the majestic mountain was about to hit him, he slowly stretched and gently stroked. It was such a casual and slow stroke that it seemed not to contain even the slightest power. But the majestic mountain had already been torn apart. A lot of spiritual power rushed around. Tao Master Thousand Water's eyes narrowed. A sword light had already penetrated his body directly. Clang! His body quickly returned to normal. He stood there, staring at Jian Wushuang with a hint of horror. The people around watching the battle were also wearing an incredible expression. Tao Master Thousand Water had let out all his strength, and Jian Wushuang just stroked to beat him without even drawing his sword? The special part about the Star Island was that you would not die here, otherwise Tao Master Thousand Water would have been dead. Was there such a gap between them? Tao Master Thousand Water, thank you. Jian Wushuang was smiling. Hope! You're our hope to pass the ultimate test. The old Tao Master Thousand Water trembled. Though defeated by Jian Wushuang, he was not angry, and was actually extremely happy. Everyone watching the battle had become fanatical. Jian Wushuang had come to challenge the ultimate test on the Star Island. The stronger he was, the greater chance they had. Now that he had beaten Tao Master Thousand Water so easily, they all recognized his strength. Jian Wushuang was definitely promising to pass the ultimate test. Great, great! After so many years, have we finally seen a glimmer of hope? This blood mountain is definitely promising to pass the ultimate test and control the entire Star Island. In time, he can release us all if he'd like. Everyone on the Star Island was excited. Blood Mountain. An indifferent voice sounded. Everyone turned their heads and saw a beautiful and enchanting red-robed woman standing in the void. The people on the Star Island all looked in awe. Lord Spirit Sound. Jian Wushuang smiled. Come with me. Lord Spirit Sound finished her words, then turned around and left. Jian Wushuang immediately followed. Not long after, he followed Lord Spirit Sound into a palace. Sit down. Lord Spirit Sound waved, and Jian Wushuang sat down beside the table. I didn't expect this. In less than 2,000 years, you have already broken through to reach the Tao Master level and returned to the Star Island. You're fast enough. Lord Spirit Sound looked very surprised. It's just good luck. Jian Wushuang laughed modestly. It doesn't take good luck to break through to the Tao Master level. Not to mention you're an inverse cultivator. Lord Spirit Sound said calmly. Well, where's Gu King? Let it out. I really want to see what that old guy becomes after following you. Jian Wushuang urged. And immediately Gu King transformed into a plenilune worm beast and climbed out of him. Ha ha! Gu King, I've hardly seen you like this. Seeing Gu King who climbed out of Jian Wushuang, Lord Spirit Sound couldn't help but laugh. When Gu King was in the stellar fog sea, it was a real behemoth, big enough for anyone to look up to. But now, humph! Gu King snorted, but did not want to say anything else. Lord Spirit Sound shrugged and looked at Jian Wushuang. Blood Mountain. Have you ever met the disciple who left Star Island 4 million years ago when you were outside? You mean Star King? Jian Wushuang looked regretful and immediately shook his head. I have never encountered any expert named Star King in these years in the Greenfire world, and I have had people check, but in vain. In the long history of Star Island in the Greenfire world, only 2 people had left the Star Island. One was Jian Wushuang and the other was Star King. The Star King passed the test 4 million years ago and left the Star Island. When Jian Wushuang stayed in the Greenfire world, he had people checked, but there was no one named Star King. Since Star King can survive the test on the Star Island, he must be a true top genius. But if such a genius did not gain any reputation in the Greenfire world, he must have died a long time ago, or had left the Greenfire world. Jian Wushuang speculated. In the Greenfire world, there were indeed many experts who, in order to pursue a higher level of strength, chose to enter the eternal chaotic world once they broke through to the Tao Master level. Is that so? Lord Spirit Sound nodded slightly, but immediately smiled. Forget it. Blood Mountain, you return to Star Island this time for the ultimate test, but the ultimate test can be extraordinary. After a pause, Lord Spirit Sound continued. The ultimate test on our Star Island is invented for holy masters. Although you are only a Tao Master, as an inverse cultivator, you are indeed qualified to be tested, but this is only the first step. I'm afraid you can pass it easily. I know it isn't easy, but I have to try anyway. Jian Wushuang comforted her. Okay, I will take you there now. Lord Spirit Sound got up. Under the guidance of her, Jian Wushuang soon came to the center of the Star Island, where 4 tall black towers stood. The 4 black towers represented the 4 levels of test, and the tallest one in the last was the ultimate test on the Star Island. At the moment, before the black tower, it was already packed with people. All the warriors trapped on the Star Island have gathered here. They knew that Jian Wushuang had returned for the ultimate test, so they all waited here full of expectations. He's here. Blood Mountain is here. Blood Mountain. When Jian Wushuang showed up, the crowd immediately clamored around him, and their eyes were extremely keen. They're really passionate, aren't they? Jian Wushuang cocked one eyebrow. These people have seen hope in you. They hope that you can overcome this ultimate test and take them away. Of course they're passionate about you. Lord Spirit Sound smiled. Well, the ultimate test is there, off you go. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded to himself and took a deep breath. Then, he immediately entered the Black Tower where the ultimate test was under the eyes of those warriors. Once in the Black Tower, Jian Wushuang found himself in a dark void. This dark void was boundless. Even with his soul power, he failed to sense the perimeter of it. Such a vast void was big enough for universe masters to fight freely. In the center of this dark void, a burly figure with a huge axe stood. Is he my opponent in this ultimate test? Jian Wushuang stayed vigilant and tried to make out the burly figure in the dark. That burly figure possessed no aura at all. He was just a puppet fighter. Before taking the test, he asked Lord Spirit Sound about it. He knew that this ultimate test was different from those of the other 3 Black Towers. Other tests were divided into 3 stages. But the ultimate test had only 1 stage and 1 opponent. The opponent must be the puppet fighter carrying a huge axe in front of him. When Jian Wushuang entered this dark void, the calm figure stood in the dark, opened his eyes suddenly. His eyes were in a strange golden color, and the moment he opened them, a horrible killing intent immediately vented, causing the surrounding void to tremble. All you have to do is beat me. The burly man with a huge axe opened his mouth and his voice was cold. Defeat this puppet fighter and I'll pass the test? The process is simple, but I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, and Blood Mountain's sword was already in his hands. Let's start this. The burly man stared at Jian Wushuang and his eyes flashed with killing intent. Boom! The void under the burly man's feet immediately collapsed, and then he approached Jian Wushuang like a flowing light. So fast. Jian Wushuang squinted. His speed was definitely much faster than the usual universe masters. At the moment when the burly man moved, he was holding the huge axe that had been on his back. The burly man clasped the giant axe, which was glaring with dazzling golden light, vast powers condensed. Without too many tricks, he directly brandished it at Jian Wushuang. At that moment, a beautiful blood-red halo broke out. Standing in front of the huge axe, Jian Wushuang felt it was like a savage beast. The prevailing power in the huge axe made his heart jerk. Humph! Jian Wushuang grunted. The soul fire in the sea of consciousness trembled slightly, and then the soul power swept out, forming a sharp soul spike. The spike flicked toward the burly man and penetrated his body. However, the burly man just paused. Soon he struck his giant axe again. How could he not be affected by my soul attack? Jian Wushuang was shocked. He surged the strength throughout his arms. Finally, the strength all gathered in Blood Mountain Sword. Heaven's Bane! Jian Wushuang looked vicious. He had tried his best to display his most powerful stroke, Heaven's Bane. Bam! There was a fierce explosion in the void. Jian Wushuang tried hard to contain himself. The void under his feet was shattered like scraps of paper. The burly man pulled back the giant axe lightning fast, and the next moment he struck again. The power of the first axe had just been displayed, and the burly man wielded his axe toward Jian Wushuang again immediately. It was overwhelming as well and left no chance for Jian Wushuang to breathe. The move Heaven's Bane Jian Wushuang had just executed barely withstood the burly man's first blow. When his axe hacked toward him again, he only had the time to hold the Blood Mountain Sword across his chest. Bang! A loud noise rang out, accompanied by a muffled snort let out by Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang flew backwards due to the impact. He continually rolled during the process and managed to regain his balance after quite a while. The burly man stood in the dark void. He put the giant axe behind him and his eyes closed again. I'm defeated. Jian Wushuang looked up at the burly man in front of him, but he still felt unbelievable. He knew the ultimate test of Star Island was extremely difficult, but he did not expect it to be so tough. It was aimed at celestial masters, but he actually possessed the genuine battle strength of a universe master. As a result, he failed to resist the 2 blows from that burly man. Although it's a test that is designed for celestial masters, apparently, ordinary universe masters cannot pass it. Anyone who wants to pass it must possess the battle strength at the peak of universe master level. Jian Wushuang thought secretly. After a brief confrontation, he had a general understanding of the strength of this puppet fighter. The puppet fighter must have reached the peak of universe master level and be no weaker than Red Snow King, who had pursued him on the battlefield. Let a celestial master defeat a peak universe master? Jian Wushuang gasped in shock. At the same time, he secretly admired. It is worthy of being the test set by the founder of the Star Bloodline. It's really demanding. It seems that it's impossible for ordinary geniuses to pass this test and join the Star Palace. The Star Bloodline only selected 2 kinds of disciples. The first type were ordinary disciples who just needed to pass the test of a Black Tower. Jian Wushuang and Star King were now merely ordinary disciples. The second type were disciples of the Star Palace. Anyone who wanted to be this type was required to pass the ultimate test. What Jian Wushuang did not know was that the Star Bloodline was also an overlord in the eternal chaotic world. Members of the Star Bloodline who were able to join the Star Palace were extremely rare. If ordinary geniuses could join the Star Palace, weren't its disciples could be seen everywhere on the street. My current strength barely reaches the universe master level. There is still a long way to go before it reaches the peak of universe master level. I assume it would be unrealistic to pass the ultimate test anytime soon. Jian Wushuang shook his head and then left there. Many warriors who had been trapped on Star Island were waiting outside the Black Tower with a look of strong desire and expectation. They had been trapped on this island for so long that they were anxious to go out. At this point, Jian Wushuang walked out of the Black Tower. He is coming out. Haven't he just entered it? Why did he come out so soon? Did he pass the ultimate test? A large number of warriors swarmed forward. Blood Mountain! Blood Mountain! Ling Long, Qian Yu, Zidong, Dao Master Kong Ming, and Dao Master Thousand Water were foremost among the warriors. They looked at Jian Wushuang with eyes filled with anticipation. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Jian Wushuang said apologetically. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the warriors on the scene all altered. After all, it's the ultimate test of Star Island. Therefore, it's not so easy to get through. Dao Master Thousand Water said first in a resonant voice. Everybody, we mustn't be too hasty. Take our time. Blood Mountain, you didn't get through the ultimate test this time, but I believe you must have witnessed its difficulty. Do you have any confidence? Dao Master Thousand Water asked. Confidence? Jian Wushuang froze. Looking at so many expectant faces, he couldn't help but take a deep breath and said solemnly, Yes, of course. Although the ultimate test is extremely difficult, I still have a way to pass it. However, it takes some time. Haha, great. As for time, anyway, we've been trapped here for so long and don't care about it. How long do you need? 10,000 years? 100,000 years? Dao Master Thousand Water asked repeatedly. I don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head. But I'll try my best at any rate. Hearing that, Dao Master Thousand Water and other people exchanged glances. Later, he said, Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just do your best. Sometimes, the more pressure, the less progress. Everybody, let's go. Blood Mountain, you just need to work hard. If there is anything we can help, don't hesitate to let us know. Inform us the next time you're ready for the ultimate test. After finishing speaking that, he left directly. The warriors on Star Island departed as well. While they were leaving, Jian Wushuang could clearly see the disappointment in their eyes. However, he was unable to do anything with that. He couldn't make any promise except for doing his utmost. After everyone had left, Blood Mountain, are you sure you'll pass the ultimate test? Qian Yu, Jian Wushuang's friend, asked seriously. I'm kind of confident about that. Jian Wushuang nodded. He was indeed confident. Although the ultimate test was incredibly difficult, he still had a little bit of confidence in his ability. The battle strength at the peak of Universe Master level. My strength is really far behind that level, but I can reach it as long as time allows. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists. There was enough room for the improvement of his current strength. His sword principles, only one of them reached the most powerful level. As for the speed sword principle and yin-yang sword principle, they were still at the creation level. He could still upgrade them. As long as one of them reached the most powerful level, his strength would naturally skyrocket. In addition, his ancient god power already reached the 3-star peak. He reckoned that it wouldn't be long before his strength broke through to the 4-star ancient god level. Once his strength reached that level, his power would increase by leaps and bounds. Naturally, his overall strength would follow suit. Currently, I only need to upgrade either the speed sword principle or the yin-yang sword principle to the most powerful level and improve my ancient god power so that it breaks through to the 4-star ancient god level. In this way, my battle strength ought to reach the peak of the Universe Master level. At that time, chances are that I am able to pass the ultimate test. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands and his sharp eyes emanated horrifying light. To promote either the speed sword principle or the yin-yang sword principle to the most powerful level. Then to boost the ancient god power to break through to the 4-star ancient god level. Among these two steps, the second step was relatively simple. The ancient god power in Jian Wushuang's body already reached a limitation, and it wouldn't take long before it to break through to the next level. The key was the first step, the improvement of his sword principles. The Star Jade Walls. Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly lit up. He was aware that there were 2 treasures on Star Island, with one of them being the Star Jade Walls. When he had been trapped on this island a long time ago, he had carefully studied the Star Jade Walls. At that time, they helped him immensely. However, he could not figure out the real mysteries in them because he was too weak. Now, however, his strength had already been improved a lot, so he probably could learn more things from them. He immediately came to the place where the Star Jade Walls were at. He directly walked into the pavilion of sword principle among those densely dotted pavilions. As soon as he entered the pavilion, he saw the jade walls on both sides of the hall. There were lifelike patterns carved on the jade walls. Each of them showed a person wielding a long sword to perform a kind of swordsmanship. To the naked eye, the patterns were identical. As a matter of fact, each of them contained an amazing swordsmanship. There were a total of 16 patterns on the jade walls. When I first saw the swordsmanships on the patterns, I felt they were extremely recondite. I wonder how will I feel now? Jian Wushuang smiled. He immediately sat cross-legged in front of one jade wall and began to study the first pattern. There was a middle-aged man who wore a straw rain cape and a bamboo hat on the first pattern. He wielded a long sword and cut a huge lake in half. Surprisingly, though his sword light had split the lake into two, the lake did not ripple. It seemed that there was no force acting on the lake. The greatest benevolence is like water that tackles complicated problems in a very easy manner. His control of this power is really incredible. Jian Wushuang secretly exclaimed. When he saw this picture many years ago, he only felt that this swordsmanship was unfathomable. Without a doubt, it was still abstruse presently. Nonetheless, he could figure out some mysteries from it. Then he began to observe the second pattern. The more patterns he observed, the more shocked he would be. Today, his understanding of sword principles was much deeper than he used to be, so the things he was able to perceive from the swordsmanships increased. That was why he felt so astonished. This swordsmanship's effect is equal to the act of splitting the heavens. One can only perform it after mastering the most powerful sword principle. It's dreamlike and difficult to tell whether it is real or not. How weird it is. Jian Wushuang marveled at it while studying it. Each one of the 16 swordsmanships was so unfathomable that he simply could not master it. Even though he had mastered one most powerful sword principle, he was absolutely unable to display such a horrible swordsmanship. At this point, he shifted his gaze at the 9th pattern. The protagonist of this pattern was also the middle-aged man who wore a straw rain cape and a bamboo hat. He stood at the end of the dark void, and in front of him were several black-robed men. They sent forth an unfathomable aura that Jian Wushuang could not fathom out. The middle-aged man acted at this moment. He wielded his sword with a single hand at a great distance. There was no sword light or sword shadow, but the heads of those black-robed men flew outward quietly. The pattern disappeared immediately. Jian Wushuang's pupils shrank suddenly. That swordsmanship? He immediately began to recall that sword movement. It gave him an unusually odd feeling. It's too fast for me to catch the sword light. Why did those black-robed men die? The middle-aged man just stood where he was without any sign of moving. How could it be so fast? Jian Wushuang was puzzled. It was indeed too fast. It was fast beyond belief. Jian Wushuang had created the speed sword principle and was skilled at speed. If he wielded his sword with all his might, he was confident that common Dao masters were unable to catch his sword light, but he must move close to them. Nevertheless, the middle-aged man in the pattern wielded his sword toward those men in black from a great distance. He killed his opponents at a distance of tens of thousands of miles, but Jian Wushuang could not capture his sword light. How could there be such a swift swordsmanship in the world? Jian Wushuang frowned and was astounded. He continued to observe the 9th pattern. He had carefully studied the previous 8 patterns. Although the swordsmanships on these patterns amazed him, he had not observed them a second time. However, he began to observe the 9th pattern a second time. He still could not figure out anything about it after that, so he watched it a 3rd time, the 4th time, and the 5th time. In just a short moment, he had observed the 9th pattern for a dozen times. Only then did he find something special about it. Space-time. It's the space-time. Jian Wushuang looked up suddenly and roared deep in his heart. After carefully watching the 9th pattern for quite a few times, he finally found a slight difference. This difference lied in the space-time. It appeared to be an ordinary swordsmanship, but it affected the entire space-time when the sword was struck outward. To be precise, it kept the space-time from influencing the sword. That's exactly what makes that swordsmanship incredible. Jian Wushuang's eyes were wide open and his body trembled violently. I understand. I understand. I finally understand what overrides speed. It's the space-time. Speed, be it fast or slow, is restricted by the space-time. The higher level of the speed sword principle should be the space-time sword principle. It's not constrained by the space-time and can exert the speed to the extreme. A flicker of excitement flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. He never understood why the speed sword principle was merely at the creation level, although it was very arcane. He did not know what other power overrode the speed. Nevertheless, when he saw the 9th pattern on the star jade wall, he finally understood that it was the space-time. The real perfect speed could only be achieved when it got rid of the restrictions of time and space. That was the most powerful sword principle. Space-time sword principle. Since Jian Wushuang had found a way to upgrade his speed sword principle to the most powerful level, the following meditation would be much simpler. He closed his eyes before the star jade wall to recall the scene that the man who wore a straw rain cape wielded his sword to kill those black-robed men in his mind. To be precise, he was recalling the unfathomable and unrestrained swordsmanship. He calmed down and learned it carefully. The space-time was the most mystical power in the world. This kind of power was beyond the reach of human beings and even more difficult for them to grasp. Jian Wushuang was a Tao master who had self-knowledge. Neither did he expect to control the power of space-time, nor did he expect his swordsmanship to completely get rid of the restrictions of the space-time. All he wanted was to upgrade his sword principle to the level that could influence the space-time. Even if it could only exert the slightest influence on the power of space-time, his swordsmanship would undergo a qualitative change. That was the space-time sword principle he had been pursued. Nonetheless, it was easier said than done because this was an incredibly difficult and complex process. Jian Wushuang completely immersed himself in the study of the space-time sword principle. Time passed quickly. In the 138th year after Jian Wushuang had returned to Star Island, his body shook suddenly in front of the star jade wall. An immense amount of ancient god power surged out and condensed into his mid-brow slowly. Finally, the 4th quadrangular star formed there. He reached the 4-star ancient god level. Immediately after that, his body began to undergo tremendous changes. The 4-star ancient god level rivaled the human celestial master level. Don't forget that Jian Wushuang was an imperial god. Although he just broke through to this level, his ancient god power alone was even more powerful than the power of a celestial master at the exceptional realm. Coupled with his spiritual power and the tenfolds of power his blood-killing plate armor executed, he was on a par with a common universe master in terms of power. Previously, he was much inferior to universe masters in this aspect and could only bridge the gap between them relying on some secret skills, treasures, and the power of Tao. Now, however, his power was comparable with that of universe masters. Thus, his overall strength had been enhanced greatly. In the twinkling of an eye, he had returned to Star Island for 300 years. He opened his eyes and looked at the void in front of him. Some strange light could be seen flickering in his eyes. He slowly stretched one of his palms to strike the void. A sword shadow visible to the naked eye dashed out and influenced the surrounding spacetime. Although it moved relatively slow, it instantly appeared in that void. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang's eyes suddenly lit up. Previously, I mastered the speed sword principle and executed this swordsmanship, both fast and slow. In that way, I could only create an illusion. Now, I succeed in making the illusion real. Jian Wushuang smiled. He deliberately displayed a slow sword movement just now. Once it affected the spacetime and slightly reduced the restrictions that the spacetime exercised on the swordsmanship, the sword could move 10 times faster. And if the swordsmanship he performed was extremely fast originally, the speed of the sword could increase by more than 10 times after it affected the spacetime. Space-time sword principle. It's the most powerful sword principle. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and his eyes were full of excitement. He had meditated in front of the star jade wall for 300 years and by learning from the 9th pattern, he finally created the spacetime sword principle. As he expected, once the spacetime sword principle could exert a little bit influence on the spacetime, it was the most powerful sword principle. Since then, after the coalescent sword principle, He created the second most powerful sword principle, space-time sword principle. The space-time is really a kind of incredible power. Combined with my swordsmanship, I have created the most powerful space-time sword principle on the condition that I only knew a little bit about the power of space-time. I cannot imagine how horrifying the space-time sword principle will be after I completely master the Tao of space-time. Jian Wushuang gasped in admiration. He was no longer the young man who didn't know anything before. His horizons had been broadened, and he knew how vast this world was. He was very clear that although he now grasped the space-time sword principle, it was nothing serious compared with the entire space-time Tao. Coalescence sword principle, space-time sword principle. The only one left is the yin-yang sword principle. Jian Wushuang was full of expectations. He had mastered 2 sword principles of the most powerful level and a sword principle at the creation level. If others had achieved those, they would have started to try to integrate sword principles together and attain the immortal Dharma body to become a celestial master. Nonetheless, he was not in a hurry. He was a man of great ambition. Chances were that his 3 sword principles could all become the most powerful ones. He wanted to integrate them after he had elevated all of them to the most powerful level. Then, he could obtain the unprecedented immortal Dharma body in the green fire world. In the eyes of others, this was absolutely a wild wish and something that could not come true. But Jian Wushuang did not think so. He was an inverse cultivator who possessed infinite possibilities. His strongest sword soul was awakened once. This meant he had great potential on sword principles. He had every reason to struggle for that. Even if he failed in the end, he just wasted nothing more than some time. But once he succeeded, how mighty the immortal Dharma body he obtained after integrating 3 strongest sword principles would be. Sunrise Sword Emperor, the one who had the potential to become a leader of the Green Fire Palace, had just integrated 2 strongest sword principles. That enabled him, a celestial master, to fight a universe master head-on and be more powerful than an ordinary universe master. However, he was merely an ordinary cultivator, not an inverse cultivator. Hence, once Jian Wushuang integrated 3 strongest sword principles, his strength would shock the world. Nevertheless, whether he was able to do that was still something unknown. He had created the second strongest sword principle, and his ancient god power had also been upgraded to the 4-star ancient god level. Furthermore, his overall strength skyrocketed. Apparently, he planned to get through the ultimate test presently. Through Lord Spirit Sound, the news about his plan spread all over Star Island very soon. Tao Master Kong Ming, Tao Master Thousand Water, and several friends of him, along with many warriors, hurried in front of the Black Tower. Blood Mountain. There was still a huge gap waiting for you to bridge the last time you endeavored to pass the ultimate test. But you come here again only after 300 years. Do you have the confidence to succeed? Tao Master Thousand Water frowned and asked him. Many warriors on Star Island looked at Jian Wushuang. For them, 300 years was a short period, so they did not think Jian Wushuang could pass the ultimate test. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, I'm not absolutely certain that I can pass it. It's only because that I've made some breakthroughs over the past 300 years that I come here to give it a shot. I did not expect Lord Spirit Sound to tell you about this. That explains the matter. Tao Master Thousand Water said, You've made the right choice. At least you can know how close you are to pass the ultimate test. Well, everybody, I shall take my leave. Jian Wushuang smiled and once again stepped into the Black Tower in the eyes of all people here. They were all waiting outside the Black Tower and discussing this matter with each other. Blood Mountain came out very quickly the last time he entered the Black Tower. Obviously, there is still a long way for him to go if he wants to pass the test. Even if he has made some breakthroughs over the past 300 years, he probably won't be able to make it. Yes, it's unrealistic for him to do that. But he should be able to stay a little longer in the Black Tower this time. Yeah, that will be great progress. The longer he stays there, the closer he is to pass the test. Time passed slowly in the midst of their discussions. 10 breaths, 20 breaths, 30 breaths, a half-quarter of an hour passed. However, Jian Wushuang still did not walk out of the Black Tower. This excited all the people present. Jian Wushuang came out of the Black Tower after 2 breaths last time. The longer he stays there, the more likely he will pass the test. Dao Master Thousand Water clenched his hands and his eyes were burning with excitement. Another half-quarter of an hour passed. Till now, a quarter of an hour had passed. At this point, Jian Wushuang walked out of the Black Tower slowly. Blood Mountain! Blood Mountain! The people waiting outside the Black Tower immediately rushed forward with an expectant look. Sorry, I let you down again. Jian Wushuang forced out a bitter smile. Failed again. Everyone present felt sorry for that, but they were not so upset as they were last time. After all, they witnessed Jian Wushuang's progress. A significant progress. Blood Mountain, you came out after 2 breaths last time you entered the Black Tower, but this time you stayed in the tower for so long. Did you nearly pass the test? Dao Master Thousand Water asked. Everyone else looked at Jian Wushuang with burning eyes. I'll tell you the truth, guys. Jian Wushuang looked around. The ultimate test demands me to defeat a formidable puppet fighter. I couldn't withstand his 2 blows last time I fought with him. This time, my strength skyrocketed and I was able to compete with him head-on, but I was still at a disadvantage. What matters is that I need to defeat him instead of fighting him. Therefore, there is still a certain gap that lies before me. Jian Wushuang was telling the truth. He had fought hand-to-hand with the puppet fighter who used a giant axe in the Black Tower. Since his strength skyrocketed, the giant axe could no longer exert any pressure on him. Armed with his swordsmanships, he was able to fight that puppet fighter head-on, but he was the underdog. After a fierce battle, he knew he could not pass the test, so he came out of the Black Tower. After the people present heard his words, their eyes sparkled. He was unable to resist 2 blows last time, but he was just at a disadvantage when he fought the puppet fighter head-on this time. How could he achieve such progress over the past 300 years? Haha, if he were given another 300 years, probably it's the puppet fighter who will be the underdog. If he makes progress at this rate, he definitely can pass the ultimate test. The warriors on Star Island were thrilled about that. If they had only seen a gleam of hope on Jian Wushuang, then he now represented their best hope. He made the impossible possible. Well, everybody, let's go. Dao Master Thousand Water waved his hand and said, Blood Mountain, just keep cultivating. It's okay if you can pass the test. Don't be eager for quick success and instant benefits. We can wait for you even if you need more time. After finishing speaking, Dao Master Thousand Water and other people departed. Jian Wushuang stood outside the Black Tower and had a strange expression on his face. As I expected, my overall strength is equal to that of a universe master at the peak level after I created the 2nd most powerful sword principle, and my ancient god power reached the 4-star level. However, the puppet fighter in the ultimate test possesses the genuine battle strength of a universe master at the peak level and is more powerful than me. I was at a disadvantage in the fierce battle, let alone defeat him. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He had tried his best to improve his strength over the past 300 years, but there was still a huge gap before he could pass the test. And then, if he wanted to advance his strength by leaps and bounds, it would be extremely difficult. I cannot find any way to improve the Yin-Yang sword principle currently. I have carefully studied the 16 swordsmanships in the Star Jade Wall but did not find any swordsmanship that is similar to it. I don't know how long I have to wait before I can upgrade it. As for secret skills, I cannot promote them either. If there is anything that still has the room for improvement in the short term, that must be swordsmanships. Jian Wushuang's eyes radiated a sliver of light. Swordsmanships. His current swordsmanships were brilliant and powerful, for example, the Heaven's Bane, the Bladed Surge, and the Death Shadow. However, with the improvement of his sword principles, he was qualified to create a more powerful swordsmanship. Moreover, although the 3 sword movements he had created were unique, they only had a single function, attack. If he could create a mightier, more unique sword movement and perfect his swordsmanships, then his overall strength would be improved drastically. Sword principles and swordsmanships are closely connected to each other. Since my sword principles have made a breakthrough, I have to find a way to design a more powerful swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and a plan came into his mind. He immediately went to find Lord Spirit Sound. Lord Spirit Sound, there's something that I need your help. What is it? Lord Spirit Sound inquired. I want to communicate with people outside the stellar fog sea. Can I? Jian Wushuang asked. The stellar fog sea was isolated from the outside world. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible to communicate with the outer world. You are the disciple of the star bloodline, so you are free to enter and exit the stellar fog sea without being restricted by its restriction. Naturally, you can send messages to outsiders. Lord Spirit Sound replied. Really? That's simple. Jian Wushuang smiled and then took out a token. 5 Palace Masters. He directly sent a message to the 5 Palace Masters of the Green Fire Palace. Jian Wushuang, what's wrong? Void Temple Master sent a message back. I have just made a breakthrough in sword principles, and I need some manuals about swordsmanships to improve my swordsmanships. Jian Wushuang answered. Manual about swordsmanships? Void Temple Master wore a smile. This is simple. Our palace has been established on this battlefield for 40 million years. Therefore, in the Firepoint Exchange office, there are plenty of such manuals and quite a few mirror images left by experts who major in sword principles when they perform swordsmanships. Since you need them, I'll sort some out for you. How many fire points? Jian Wushuang asked. No need for fire points. Void Temple Master said. In the Green Fire Palace, Palace Masters enjoyed special privileges. Ordinary Celestial Masters need to exchange treasures in the Firepoint Exchange office with fire points, but as Palace Masters we can just take them so long as we need. We can put things that we don't need there as well. You are already one of the Palace Masters. Although we haven't announced the news, you surely can take the treasures in the Firepoint Exchange office directly. Really? Jian Wushuang smiled helplessly. In this case, thank you for doing me this favor, Void Temple Master. Nothing. Tell me where you are now and I will send them to you personally in a few days. Void Temple Master said. 3 days later, Void Temple Master had already sorted out the manuals and sent them to Jian Wushuang. It was impossible for Jian Wushuang to meet him on the Stellar Fog Sea. So they met each other in a branch of the Void Temple. Jian Wushuang, I've just casually picked all this out. There are still a lot such manuals if you need more. Void Temple Master said. Enough, enough. Jian Wushuang continually shook his head and was shocked. Void Temple Master had selected a lot of manuals for him, including numerous images on which experts who specialized in sword principles displayed swordsmanships. It would take him thousands of years or even more time if he was going to study them one by one. They were all high-grade manuals about sword principles and were enough for him. After bidding farewell to Void Temple Master, Jian Wushuang returned to Star Island again. He sat cross-legged in the secret chamber and immersed himself in the study of these manuals. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Jian Wushuang suddenly opened his eyes and slightly knitted his brows. Although these manuals and mirror images inspired me a lot and improved my understanding of swordsmanships, I still lack practice. If I want to create a more powerful swordsmanship, I definitely need to temper myself with fierce battles and time. Jian Wushuang clenched his fists and his body shocked suddenly. Swoosh! Another original body appeared beside him. When he was pursued by the 4 kings from the Jin Kingdom and helplessly entered the Chilly Wind Valley, this original body was destroyed. However, he repaired it after hundreds of years. My first original body just stays here to meditate these manuals and mirror images, and my second original body might as well ventures in the outside world to temper his swordsmanships through battles. Jian Wushuang made up his mind. Go! Jian Wushuang's second original body immediately left Star Island. His second original body transformed into a white-robed middle-aged man who walked on the Void Continent and deliberately suppressed his aura at the Eternal Realm. He traveled around the world with a single sword. Celestial Sword Sect was a first-class force on the Void Continent. It had a profound foundation on the Void Continent and had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. It was well known for its swordsmanships. Countless warriors in this sect had been working hard on swordsmanships over hundreds of thousands of years. The 9-layered sword tower in this sect was very famous in the entire Void continent. It was a cultivation sanctuary for people who cultivated sword principles. One day, a white-robed middle-aged man came to the Celestial Sword sect with a long sword behind his back. "My name is Juing. I heard that the swordsmanships of the Celestial Sword sect are extraordinary, so I pay a visit here especially." The white-robed middle-aged man Juing said politely, "Our sect always gives facility to cultivators who major in sword principles. Since you are a sword cultivator, please pass through our swordstone formation first. After that, we'll treat you as a guest and you are allowed to enter the first 6 floors of the sword tower." An elder of the Celestial Sword sect said, "Please lead the way for me." Following this elder, Juing went into the Celestial Sword sect. On the same day, he easily passed through the swordstone formation and then lived in this sect. He had just stayed there for 1 year. But within this period, he had continually challenged the top 10 guests in this sect and its 6 elders as well as a vice sect master. The 6 elders and that vice sect master were all Dao masters. Juing only utilized the power of an Eternal Realm expert to challenge them from the beginning to the end, but all of them were defeated by him. Half a year later, this white-robed, middle-aged man came to a lofty castle. "I'm Juing. I heard that Dao Master Tai Xian's cultivation on sword principles is excellent and your swordsmanships are outstanding, so I come here to ask for advice." The white-robed, middle-aged man was still modest and polite. "How dare you, an Eternal Realm rookie, to challenge me? You are digging your grave." Dao Master Tai Xian was furious and directly acted. Juing still fought him with the strength of an Eternal Realm expert. Although he was defeated at last, he withdrew from the battle with composure. On an endless mountain that was covered by snow, there lived a top-rank 3 Dao master who was also skilled at sword principles. The white-robed, middle-aged man Juing went to find this Dao master as well. Jian Wushuang had 2 original bodies. His first original body stayed on Star Island to meditate and study manuals about sword principles and such mirror images left by other experts. The other original body transformed into a middle-aged man at the Eternal Realm who named Juing to travel around the world and challenge experts who specialized in sword principles to temper his swordsmanships. Time passed slowly, but in the twinkling of an eye, Jian Wushuang had studied in the secret chamber for 1,500 years. The white-robed middle-aged man transformed by his another original body had also traveled in the outside world alone for 1,500 years. Coupled with the days he had stayed on Star Island, it was a total of 1,800 years. It was no big deal for experts in the Green Fire world, but it was quite a long time for Jian Wushuang. It was the longest secluded cultivation that he had experienced since he was born. His another original body finally returned to Star Island. At the top of a lofty pavilion, Jian Wushuang's 2 original bodies stood shoulder to shoulder. After 1,500 years of meditation and experience on swordsmanships, my 2 original bodies have made great progress in swordsmanships. But a period of time is needed to digest what they have learned. Jian Wushuang smiled and immediately integrated his 2 original bodies into one. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes just at the top of the pavilion, an extremely conspicuous place. He wore a deep smile on the corners of his mouth. It looked unusually fascinating. "Look, isn't that Blood Mountain? It's him. What is he doing there? It seems that he is cultivating. Have you noticed the smile on his face? Why did it make me feel so weird?" Warriors who passed by the pavilion saw Jian Wushuang, but they did not disturb him. All of them could tell that Jian Wushuang was in an amazing state. Somewhere on Star Island, Lord Spirit Sound and a skinny elder sat face to face. The latter was transformed by Gu King. Gu King came out of Jian Wushuang's body after Jian Wushuang set foot on Star Island and did not go into his ancient god body during this period. At this moment, their eyes penetrated buildings and clearly saw where Jian Wushuang was at. "That boy is undergoing metamorphosis?" Gu King's pupils shrank. "Yes, it's the metamorphosis on swordsmanships or mental attitude. It seems that he has benefited immensely from years of secluded cultivation," Lord Spirit Sound said. "In this way, he will surely try to go through the ultimate test again after he finishes with his metamorphosis." And this time, the odds that he will succeed should be high. Spirit Sound, I should congratulate you in advance. Finally, there is someone who can pass the ultimate test after you have waited for so many years. Gu King looked at Lord Spirit Sound. I have stayed on this island for so many years and I'm tired of living here anymore. If Jian Wushuang really can pass the ultimate test and control the stellar fog sea, then I will be free. Lord Spirit Sound smiled. Apparently, she hoped that Jian Wushuang could pass the ultimate test. He won't let you down, Gu King replied smilingly. He had been with Jian Wushuang for so long and had a good understanding of him. He knew how great his potential was. Jian Wushuang alone sat at the top of the pavilion for half a month. Half a month later, he opened his eyes and stood up. My two original bodies has cultivated for 1,500 years, and my swordsmanships have been greatly improved. Even if I continue to do secluded cultivation, the effect may not be so dramatic. That's not necessary. I can try the ultimate test of Star Island. He immediately went toward the Black Tower. Again, the news that he prepared to pass through the ultimate test spread throughout Star Island by Lord Spirit Sound. Everyone on Star Island was extremely excited. They had witnessed Jian Wushuang's horrible progress 1,500 years ago, and now they believed he must have achieved greater progress. In the Black Tower, in the vast dark void, a burly man carried a giant axe on his back stood in front of Jian Wushuang. You are here again? The burly man glanced at Jian Wushuang. I was defeated by you the first 2 times, but this time, I will defeat you, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Oh? You are quite confident. The burly man had a deadpan expression on his face. Although he was a puppet fighter, he had intelligence. He could tell that there was a great difference between the Jian Wushuang in front of him now and the one 1,500 years ago. Let's start. The burly man acted without talking any nonsense. He moved as soon as the giant axe appeared in his hands. Boom! The dark void at his foot cracked instantly. Like a shell, he immediately appeared before Jian Wushuang. Swish! Carrying an immense amount of power, a towering and eye-catching axe shadow flew outward. Apart from its fast speed, its power was also sufficient to make ordinary universe masters tremble. In the previous 2 battles, I suffered losses due to power, but this time, sharp light surged in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The moment he saw the burly man hacking the giant axe toward him, he held the Blood Mountain sword tightly and surges of power swarmed into the sword. Hum! The Blood Mountain sword quivered and suddenly chopped outward. Heaven's Bane! Jian Wushuang let out a roar. It was the Heaven's Bane. After 1,500 years of study and improvement, it was no longer the previous weak sword movement. A sword light dashed out. Although this sword movement was powerful previously, it failed to gather all the power in one place and release all the power in an instant. Now, however, although it did not appear to be so powerful, in fact, it gathered an immense amount of power in one place and could destroy everything. Boom! A loud bang was heard. Jian Wushuang stopped and the giant axe of that burly man moved backwards due to the impact. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently and his long sword left his hand at a top speed. A cold sword light swayed the moment it escaped from his hand and influenced the surrounding spacetime. It came in front of the burly man in a split second. The burly man waved his big hand and shattered it easily. Bright moon! Jian Wushuang's eyes looked as sharp as a blade. He shook his wrist and hacked out the Blood Mountain sword. A huge bright moon emerged before the burly man. The burly man took a step forward and struck out the axe held by his 2 hands. The moment the giant axe smashed the bright moon fell apart and formed numerous sword lights shooting toward the burly man. At the same time, Jian Wushuang's Blood Mountain sword turned into a giant black dragon. Dragon power! Jian Wushuang let out a cold snort, and the black dragon transformed by the Blood Mountain sword immediately roared and dashed out. No sooner had the burly man warded off the sword lights all over the sky than the black dragon charged at him. Get out of my way! The burly man shouted and hacked the giant axe in his hands outward, quick as a flash. The huge and mighty axe shadow directly tore the black dragon open. However, there was a power hiding in this dragon. It suddenly released and made the burly man take several steps backwards. At this time, Jian Wushuang moved in a strange way and stared at the burly man. All of a sudden, a fierce wind blew. Spell of disturbance. Jian Wushuang continually wielded his sword. Sword shadows, along with the gale, formed a real storm that covered the burly man completely. Innumerable sword shadows attacked the burly man fiercely. All the sword shadows affected the spacetime and thus were incredibly fast. The burly man also tried his best to fend off the sword shadows with his giant axe. Clang, clang, clang. Sounds of collisions were heard continually. The burly man was trapped in the storm of sword shadows and looked terribly bad. Suddenly, Jian Wushuang emerged from the storm, and his eyes radiated with sharp light. Triple waves. Swish, swish, swish. 3 consecutive sword shadows broke free from Jian Wushuang's hands in the blink of an eye. Although they were merely 3 sword shadows, when they combined together, they were more like 3 waves rushing forward in succession. The burly man immediately resisted them. Rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat. As 3 deep sounds rang out, the burly man took 3 steps backwards. Every step was at a distance of 10,000 miles and smashed the void below him. After the burly man regained his balance, he looked at Jian Wushuang again. Although he still looked indifferent, there was a trace of horror in his eyes. After fighting with him for a short period, he was able to detect Jian Wushuang's power. Although it was not much better than that of 1,500 years ago, he had made great progress in swordsmanship. It was an immeasurably vast difference. Jian Wushuang himself was stunned as well. It seems that I have underestimated this puppet fighter. Jian Wushuang admired secretly. I have just displayed the swordsmanships that I have created over the years, however, I just barely gained the upper hand. Jian Wushuang executed a lot of swordsmanships right at that moment. All of them were created by himself these years. Among them, the Heaven's Bane, Dragon Power, and Spell of Disturbance acquired a substantial improvement from the original basis. The Dragon Power was the improved version of the Bladed Surge. It contained more than 1 wave of hidden power and was far more powerful. Likewise, the Spell of Disturbance was the improved version of the Death Shadow and was faster than the Death Shadow. It enabled cultivators to strike out the sword hundreds of times at one go. Each time the sword would influence the spacetime and contain horrifying soul attack power. Nonetheless, the burly man managed to withstand this blow too. The bright moon and triple waves were the swordsmanships that he had lately created. They were also fabulous. The burly man looked at Jian Wushuang surprisedly. Your swordsmanships are much better than before. With such swordsmanships, you totally can have the upper hand in the fierce battle with me and even suppress me, but they are not sufficient if you want to defeat me. The burly man said in a low voice. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. What he was required to do was to defeat the burly man if he wanted to pass the ultimate test. Though suppression and defeat seemed to be of a similar nature, there was still a huge gap between them, in fact. If this was all Jian Wushuang could do, he still couldn't pass the ultimate test this time. I have already said it before that I will definitely defeat you this time. I never break my word. Jian Wushuang said with a smile. So, what other means do you have? The burly man stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang smiled and did not deny that. He thought secretly, my 2 original bodies shared out the work and cooperated with each other over the past 1,500 years. They put all their energy into the study of swordsmanships. Moreover, I have an amazing gift in sword principles, and with the aid of so many manuals and mirror images, I surely have achieved great progress. The most important thing is that I have spent quite a long time to study them. It was his first time to cultivate for such a long time in the secret chamber. For him, this period was enough for a dramatic change to occur on his strength. However, he spent it just to study swordsmanships. So how great the progress he achieved on swordsmanships would be. And of course, this would never be all he could do. My biggest achievement these years is that I have created a sword movement coincidentally. Since I created it at dawn, I named it Dawn Light. Jian Wushuang said gently. Dawn Light. The burly man knitted his brows. Although Jian Wushuang had not acted yet, He had already vaguely felt how exceptional that swordsmanship was. Soon afterwards, Jian Wushuang took actions. He lifted the Blood Mountain sword with a single hand and looked quite casual. Right at that moment, the whole world was caught in complete darkness. There was not a little bit of light, just like the real night. Furthermore, no sound was heard, even the sound of breathing. Horrible silence pervaded there. Jian Wushuang held the long sword with his right hand and had no expression on his face. He struck the long sword outward the very next moment. A flash of dazzling light appeared immediately. It shone brightly above the sky, as if it was the first ray of light at dawn. It stood for infinite hope. When the burly man saw this ray of light, his pupils shrank. Whoosh! Silently, the dawn light came in front of him. His expression changed dramatically and his power surged out crazily. Quick as a flash, he waved his giant axe outward. He had done his best. However, clang! A sound of metal collision rang out. The giant axe in his hands flew backwards due to the impact and the dawn light hit him unimpededly. Luckily, he was a puppet fighter. If he was a normal human expert, even if he was a universe master, his body would fall apart under this impact. Boom! The dawn light swept around crazily with blasts of air. The dark void finally calmed down after quite a long time.